Chapter 38:10. The figure of the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart was like a mountain standing in the sky, like a mountain of swords. His whole body was surging with sword intent, sharp and vigorous, like thousands of strong winds, making him look domineering and extremely terrifying. Damn it! Below, the demon Feather King managed to stabilize himself. His eyes were filled with cold light. He looked at the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart coldly and roared. On his chest, there was a 1-meter-long wound that was so deep that his bones could be seen. His entire body was bathed in blood. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's attack was too terrifying. If it wasn't for the fact that the martial body of the dragon tribe was much stronger than other martial bodies, the demon Feather King would have been a corpse by now. Speaking of which, the Black Dragon Trio were martial ancestors of the Sky Martial Arts realm. They had even reached the peak of the Sky Martial Arts realm. However, after they were sealed in ice, their strength was weakened. In addition, they had just woken up, so their strength couldn't recover in a short time. That was why they were so weak in front of the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. That attack was just a warning. It's not easy for you to cultivate to this level. If you don't want to die, get lost. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes were filled with murderous intent. It spoke in a cold voice. It sounded like thunder in the 9 heavens, resounding in the ears of the Black Dragon Trio. The Black Dragon Trio's faces darkened. Their eyes were extremely cold. They had come for the Dragon Shepherds. Now that the Dragon Shepherds were right in front of them, how could they leave just like that? In the distance, Niet Tion and Patriarch 5 Nether were watching from afar, their hearts filled with shock. This was especially the case for Forefather Wu Ming. His old face was completely stunned. He had never thought that such a powerful martial artist would come at such a critical moment. He couldn't help but feel uneasy. He knew that Niet Tion must be hiding a bigger secret. Perhaps Niet Tion's status was even higher than he had imagined. Die! At that moment, the Heaven Evil King made his move. The black dragon body rolled in the void, stirring up countless dark clouds. The dark clouds rolled down and oppressed the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart held a long sword in its hand. Its white robe fluttered in the wind. Its sword intent surged like an unmoving mountain in a storm. Boom! He stabbed out with his sword again. The shadow of the sword whizzed out and directly attacked the body of the black dragon. The dragon Chi in the void tumbled like the sea. The world seemed to be heading towards destruction under the impact of such a violent force. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the space-time storm in the sky became even more terrifying. Waves of terrifying rumbles sounded, as if the heavens and earth were wailing. Scarlet Life, Dan Xian's eyes darkened, and his face was filled with murderous intent. If they continued to fight like this, the world would not be able to bear it. At that time, not only would the 5 underworld sacred world be destroyed, but the people of the Heavenly Tao Sacred Pavilion would also be alerted. The Heavenly Tao Sacred Pavilion was the strongest power in the all-heaven sacred world. Previously, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart had crossed paths with the people from the Heaven Tao Sacred Pavilion, and it was not easy to deal with. If the people from the Heavenly Tao Sacred Pavilion were to appear again, Niet Tion's identity would be exposed. He had never given up on investigating the death of the previous Starry Sky Saint, Dong Wang Zhengrong. The result of his investigation was that Dong Wang Zhengrong's death was most likely related to the Heaven Tao Sacred Pavilion. Therefore, he did not trust the Heaven Tao Sacred Pavilion. He was even worried that the Heaven Tao Sacred Pavilion might have ulterior motives for the Star Origin Stone. The last thing he wanted to see was the appearance of the people from the Heaven Tao Sacred Pavilion. Sir, would you rather destroy this sacred world? The Heaven Devil Monarch shouted after he regained his balance, after he was pushed back by the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. He could already tell that the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart was holding back when he attacked. It was obvious that he was afraid of something. Come on. However, at this moment, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart waved his sword in the air. Instantly, a wave of sword intent appeared and spread across the area. A huge barrier of sword intent was formed. Big brother, is this guy crazy? He actually used his sword intent to stabilize the space-time. Doesn't he know that by doing so much, it would be a form of damage to the foundation of his sword principle? Moreover, it would directly weaken his current battle prowess? When a monster king saw this scene, his eyes trembled and he spoke coldly. Seems like he doesn't want to alarm the others. The heaven devil monarch sneered and said, "That's good too. Even if we kill him, the others won't know." Just like what the earth devil monarch said, the scarlet life loyal heart used his sword intent to form a barrier. Not only would it consume a large amount of his sword intent, it would also damage the foundation of his sword principle. He did this to protect the 5 underworld sacred world. At the same time, he would not alarm the people from the Heaven Tao sacred pavilion. Big brother, let him see the true power of the 3 evils. The devil feather monarch came to the side of the evils of heaven and earth and said coldly, "All right." The heaven devil monarch and the earth devil monarch laughed at the same time. Then, the 3 of them shook their bodies at the same time. Instantly, an endless amount of black dragon chi was released and merged together in the air. In an instant, a huge storm of dragon chi was formed. The scarlet life loyal heart could feel the strong aura of the storm of dragon chi. He could not help but exclaim in surprise. He did not expect the dragon chi of the 3 black dragons to merge together. Oh no! Although Nidan was outside the barrier, he could clearly feel that the dragon chi released by the black dragon 3 evils was a few times stronger than before. Under such strong dragon chi, could the scarlet life loyal heart withstand it? Die! At this moment, a deep roar could be heard in the sword intent barrier. Then, in the storm of dragon chi, a huge black dragon was formed and rolled out. The space around it trembled as it charged towards the scarlet life loyal heart. Sword principle, conquering the heavens. Seeing this, the scarlet life loyal essence's eyes dimmed a little. Without the slightest fear, it let out a thunderous roar, and the sword intent in its body skyrocketed to the extreme. Then it slashed out. The sword's shadow pressed down the void, as if the sky and earth were sinking. Rumble. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, 2 extremely terrifying forces collided with each other. A loud bang could be heard. It was as though the sky and earth were about to explode. Then a huge amount of energy spread out, and the raging sea mausoleum rolled and spread in all directions. A terrifying power wreaked havoc in the void, violent and terrifying. Yet Tion's eyes trembled. Under the terrifying power, the scarlet life loyal heart and the black dragon 3 evils could no longer be seen in the sword intent barrier. This, Ancestor Wu Ming was shocked. His mouth was wide open, but he could not say a word. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. After a long time, a muffled sound came from the sky, followed by a cracking sound. Then, the sword intent barrier shattered. A bloody figure flew out. It was Ancestor Sheng Tian's scarlet life loyal heart. Senior. Seeing this scene, Tian's eyes trembled and he exclaimed. Chapter 38:11. The scarlet life loyal heart stood coldly in the void. He was covered in blood, and his body was trembling uncontrollably. He was like a leaf in a storm that could fall at any time. However, his eyes were filled with sharpness and determination. He did not expect the Black Dragon Trio to have a combined attack that was so terrifying that it could injure him so severely. If he had known earlier, he would not have activated the enchantment of Sword Will, even at the risk of attracting the attention of the Heavenly Law Sacred Pavilion. Although the enchantment of Sword Will had stabilized the space-time, it had consumed too much of his Sword Will and caused his strength to decrease tremendously. If not for this, he would have been able to fight against the combined attack of the Black Dragon Trio. He would not have been defeated so badly. Old man, you can't hold on anymore. Get out of my way. The Devil of Heaven King stepped forward and said coldly. Even though the Scarlet Life loyal heart was severely injured, he did not dare to be careless. After all, his opponent was a peak divine ancestor. Bring it on. The Scarlet Life loyal heart raised his head and laughed hysterically. Even at this stage, it was absolutely impossible for him to retreat. You are courting death. The Devil of Earth King's eyes darkened and he roared. Then he attacked. Dragon Chi filled his body and he slammed his palm down. A shadow of a dragon's claw appeared in the air, and flew towards the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes trembled slightly. He swung his long sword across the void and resisted the attack of the dragon's claw. However, he was knocked back thousands of meters. Puff! He stabilized his body again. His face was red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body shook even more violently. It was obvious that his injuries had worsened. Nietion's eyes flickered as he exclaimed, "Senior Crimson Life! Nietion, leave now!" The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart did not turn around, but his unyielding voice resounded in the void. Even if he was on the verge of death, he would do everything he could to win the last chance of survival for Nietion. "Senior!" Nietion's eyes trembled, and he did not know what to say. He watched as the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart fought against the Black Dragon Triad alone, but he could only watch. His strength was too weak to help at all. "Nietion, let's go." Old Ancestor Wu Ming grabbed Nietion and prepared to leave. "Senior Qi Ming fought to protect me. How can I leave just like that?" Nietion's face was extremely gloomy, and he roared directly. "Nietion, don't let my sacrifice be in vain." At that moment, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's voice was heard again. "I wanted to rebuild the starry sacred domain with you, but I'm afraid that's impossible now." "Senior." Nietion's gaze trembled, and his eyes were moist. "Sacred Lord, the Scarlet Life Pill Heart has done its best." In the next moment, the Crimson Life Loyal Heart suddenly roared and its body shook. Blood Chi and Sword Chi were released. Outside of its body, a gigantic sword shadow appeared. It was like a gigantic sword that pierced through the sky, oppressing the void. Even the air was trembling. "Senior, don't." Seeing this scene, Nietion's eyes trembled. He immediately understood what was going on and shouted. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart was burning its blood chi and sword chi. It was obvious that it was going to perish together with the Black Dragon Triad. "You're courting death." Seeing this scene, the Devil King shouted cold. Then, he moved his body and merged with the Devil Earth King and the Devil Feather King again. In the billowing dragon chi, a gigantic black dragon appeared. Its terrifying aura shook the heavens and the earth, and it pressed down on the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. "Die!" Almost at the same time, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart roared. Suddenly, the gigantic sword outside of its body shook in the air, and like a collapsing mountain, it pressed down on the black dragon. Boom! In the next moment, the void suddenly shook, and an earth-shattering roar sounded. Suddenly, the heavens and the earth trembled, and the entire world seemed to be falling into destruction. Boom, boom, boom. In the space, endless power raged, and it turned into rolling waves. It spread in all directions, as if it wanted to destroy everything. "Go!" Seeing this, Old Ancestor Wu Ming roared. He directly took Nietion and retreated crazily. Boom, boom, boom. But at this time, the space-time could not bear it anymore, and it began to collapse on a large scale. The space-time storm crazily surged, engulfing and annihilating everything. "Oh no!" Old Ancestor Wu Ming's eyes trembled, and he shouted in his heart. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart and the Black Dragon, three evils were too strong. Under the confrontation of the two, the space-time of the mid-level sacred world could not bear it at all, and it began to collapse directly. Boom! In the next moment, the endless storm swept over, and it was about to drown Nietion and Old Ancestor Wu Ming. Hua! At the moment of life and death, in the space-time tunnel above Nietion's head, a huge power appeared and suddenly fell, turning into a shield, protecting Nietion and Old Ancestor Wu Ming. An expert. Old Ancestor Wu Ming's eyes trembled, and he could not help but exclaim. He had never expected that at this time another expert would come, and, judging from the aura, this expert was not weaker than the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart, and it was clearly another Sky Martial Divine Ancestor Peak expert. Old Ancestor Wu Ming already knew that the space-time tunnel above Nietion's head should be used to summon some people. But he could not imagine that with Nietion's strength, he could actually summon a Sky Martial Divine Ancestor Peak expert. He was even more curious about Nietion's identity. "You are." At this time, under the protection of a shield, Nietion saw a black figure appear, and his eyes trembled, and he shouted a name, Lord of Stars. He could not believe his own name. The person who appeared at this time was actually the Lord of Stars, Heavenly Fiend Lone Star Lord. Back in the realm, Nietion had seen Heavenly Fiend Lone Star. Heavenly Fiend Lone Star and Killing Wolf were called the double absolute star souls. But Heavenly Fiend Lone Star, the Lord of Stars, was not friendly to Nietion, and he wanted to snatch the Star Essence Stones. For the Star Essence Stones, Heavenly Fiend Lone Star even built the Jueying Palace. But later, the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart came, and Heavenly Fiend Lone Star temporarily stopped. Who would have thought that the person who appeared at this time was Heavenly Fiend Lone Star? Wait here. Heavenly Fiend Lone Star arrived, and Cold said. Then his figure moved, and he directly rushed into the endless waves. Wherever his figure passed, the collapsed space-time directly recovered. After a while, Heavenly Fiend Lone Star's figure appeared again, holding a blood-colored figure in his hand. It was Scarlet Life Loyal Heart. Chapter 38:12. The Tian Sha King sensed the murderous intent from Tian Sha Longsing. He was surprised. He had already sensed that Tian Sha Longsing's strength was no weaker than the Scarlet Life Loyal Essence. He was also a Sky Martial Saint ancestor at the peak. He couldn't understand how the Dragon Mu, who was only at the Heavenly Mandate realm, could attract so many Sky Martial Saint ancestors. The worst thing was that the three evils of Black Dragon had merged twice. Not only did they consume a lot of Dragon Chi, but they were also injured when fighting against the Scarlet Life Loyal Essence. At this moment, they were no longer able to fight against Tian Sha Longsing. Senior Scarlet Life, Nietion shouted in the distance. He was obviously panicking. He is not dead yet. Tian Sha Longsing's eyes darkened. He pushed his hand in the air and sent the Scarlet Life Loyal Essence to Nietion. Senior, Nietion's eyes trembled. He stepped forward and caught the Scarlet Life Loyal Essence. He sensed its aura. Although it was very weak, it was still there and stable. He heaved a sigh of relief. His tense face relaxed a little. The Scarlet Life Loyal Essence was seriously injured, but it was still alive. This was already great news. My friend, are you also going to protect the Dragon Mu? The Tian Sha King looked at Tian Sha Longsing. He seemed to be very scared and asked carefully, You've injured my friend. Tian Sha Longsing's eyes were gloomy. His eyes were extremely evil. He said in a cold tone, There is a grudge between us. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. His aura was released in an instant. Like rolling waves, the sky and earth shook. Seeing this, the Tian Sha King's face darkened again. It seemed that there was another hard nut to crack. Big brother, let's kill him. The evil Feather King seemed to have lost his patience. He roared and moved. He turned into a giant black dragon in the void and pressed down on Tian Sha Longsing. Third brother, watch out. The Tian Sha King's eyes trembled. He shouted in fear, but it was too late. Bang! Tian Sha Gushing slammed out with his palm, causing a thunderous sound to ring out in the air. The gigantic black dragon froze for a moment before disintegrating into pieces. After that, a blood-colored silhouette was flung through the air, leaving a trail of blood in the air. Third brother. The horrifying scene made the Heaven Monster King and the Earth Monster King scream in surprise at the same time. The two of them moved instantly and caught the Demon Feather King. However, at this moment, Demon King Feather's entire body was badly mutilated, and he was only left with his last breath. Third brother. The Monster King roared furiously. His eyes were crimson red and filled with blood, and he seemed like a berserk and enraged beast. The aura on his entire body surged out crazily, and he suddenly looked towards the Monster King, wishing he could eat the latter. Second brother, don't be impulsive. Saving people is more important. The Heaven Emanation's sovereign held onto the Earth Emanation's sovereign. Although his eyes were trembling, he still maintained his basic rationality as he spoke in a deep voice. After losing the Demon Feather King, even if he merged with the Earth Emanation's king, he wouldn't be able to fight against the Lone Star. If the Earth Monster King were to make a move at this moment, he would probably end up worse than the Demon Feather King. It was extremely possible that he would be killed by the Lone Star's palm strike. Your name? The Earth Monster King forcefully endured the immense pain in his heart as he looked at the Lone Star cold and asked. Myriad Star Pavilion Master, the Lone Star. The Lone Star's eyes sank slightly as he replied in a cold manner. I will remember it. The Earth Monster King roared in a deep voice, and his entire body was as violent as a ferocious beast. Let's go. The Heaven Monster King took a look at the Lone Star and spoke in a cold manner, after which he tore the void apart and left with the Earth Monster King together with the Demon Feather King. The Lone Star's eyes sank, and he didn't stop them. Instead, he watched as the evil Black Dragon Triad left. The aura of the evil Black Dragon Triad disappeared, and the Lone Star's gloomy face softened a little, after which his body moved and he came to the side of Nyetian. Senior, Sky Monster. Nyetian looked at the Lone Star, and he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still addressed the Lone Star as Senior. No matter what, the Lone Star saved him and the Scarlet Life loyal heart at this time. The Lone Star didn't speak. Instead, he stretched out his hand, and a powerful force appeared, condensing into a whirlpool in his palm, after which it directly entered the Scarlet Life loyal heart's martial body. After a moment, the Scarlet Life loyal heart opened its eyes. When it saw the Lone Star, it wasn't too surprised. Instead, it squeezed out a smile and said, Sky Monster, you came after all. I just don't want the Star Origin Stone to fall into the hands of others, the Lone Star replied in a cold manner. The Scarlet Life loyal heart's mouth twitched, but it didn't say anything. Senior Scarlet Life, are you okay? Nyetian saw that the Scarlet Life loyal heart had woken up and asked anxiously. I won't die for the time being, the Scarlet Life loyal heart laughed, but there was an unconcealable sense of loss in its eyes. This time, it was a little careless. If it wasn't for the Lone Star's arrival, it would have really died in the hands of the evil Black Dragon Triad. However, at this time, even if it survived, the foundation of its swordsmanship had been damaged to a certain extent, and its strength had dropped a lot. Senior, it's all thanks to you this time. Nyetian nodded slightly, glanced at the Scarlet Life loyal heart and the Lone Star, and sincerely thanked them. The Scarlet Life loyal heart took a deep breath, and its expression improved a lot. It looked at Nyetian and asked, Nyetian, who are those three guys? Why are they looking for you? I don't know, it seems to be because of some dragon shepherd. Nyetian shook his head and couldn't help but look at Ancestor Wu Ming. The Scarlet Life loyal heart and the Lone Star's expression changed, and they also looked at Ancestor Wu Ming. Ancestor Wu Ming felt the pressure from the two experts and frowned deeply. After a long silence, he said, You two, come back with me first. I will tell you the truth. Nyetian nodded, and the Scarlet Life loyal heart and the Lone Star didn't object. Not long after, Ancestor Wu Ming brought Nyetian and the others back to the valley. Speak. The Scarlet Life loyal heart looked at Ancestor Wu Ming. It obviously couldn't wait any longer. Wait. But at this time, before Ancestor Wu Ming could speak, the Lone Star took a step forward and stared at Nyetian. I want to know, why do you have the Sacred Lord's Destiny Star rune on you? Destiny Star rune. Nyetian's eyes narrowed when he heard this name. He could summon the Scarlet Life loyal heart and the Lone Star because of the Star Sacred Lord's Destiny Star rune. However, the Scarlet Life loyal heart and Lone Star didn't know about the Destiny Star rune. Nyetian was a little hesitant. He didn't know if he should tell them about it. Nyetian, what's going on? The Scarlet Life loyal heart couldn't help but feel anxious when it saw Nyetian's hesitation. Nyetian frowned and let out a long breath. He finally told them about the Destiny Star rune. Chapter 38:13. Nyetian couldn't help but frown upon hearing that the heavenly cursed Lone Star was suspecting him. In the next moment, his expression flickered and his eyes went blank. Gu Xing said that only Dongwang Zhengrong could activate the natal star mark. It was obvious that Dongwang Zhengrong had appeared before. This hint was no small matter. Dongwang Zhengrong had been dead for a long time. Otherwise, the Star Essence Stone would not have fallen into Nyetian's hands. Everyone believed that Dong Wang was dead. However, it was very strange that Nye Tian had activated the natal star mark. Could it be that Dong Wang was still alive? Nye Tian, who activated the natal star mark? At this time, the Crimson Life loyal heart also came to its senses and asked Nye Tian with a pair of blazing and excited eyes. I don't know who that senior is either. Nye Tian frowned and shook his head helplessly. He then told her what had happened. A mysterious man. Scarlet Life Dan Xian's pupils shrank slightly, and he couldn't help but feel a little strange. According to Nye Tian, this mysterious person had been helping Nye Tian secretly. He was also the one who activated the natal star mark. Moreover, the mysterious person knew that once the natal star mark was activated, someone would come to save Nye Tian. Obviously, this mysterious person was very familiar with the natal star mark and the star essence stone. He had secretly helped Nye Tian and saved Nye Tian's life. Obviously, he was not an enemy. However, his identity was very mysterious. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart could not think of a second person who could activate the natal star mark other than Dong Wang Zhengrong. Could it be that Brother Dong Wang is still alive? The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's eyes trembled for a long time before he finally voiced out his guess. His body trembled at this moment, and his eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement. Although Nye Tian was the current star saint, he still hoped that Dong Wang Zhengrong was still alive. I don't know either. Nye Tian shook his head and said, I don't know much about that senior. I didn't even see his face clearly. Then, he turned to look at Ancestor Wu Ming. The latter seemed to have some grudges with the mysterious person. Perhaps he knew the person's true identity. Friend, do you know the true identity of that mysterious person? Gu Xing looked at old Ancestor Wu Ming with a dark gaze. I only know that he is the enemy of the Dark Dragon tribe. I don't know anything else. Ancestor Wu Ming said coldly. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart and Lonely Star looked at Ancestor Wu Ming in surprise. Looking at Forefather Five Nether's expression, it didn't seem like he was lying. Tian Sha, if he's really alive and wants to hide his identity, we won't be able to find him. After a moment of silence, Scarlet Life Loyal Heart shook his head and smiled helplessly. After all, Tian, Chun Tian, and said Tian Wu Life. If he is alive, why didn't he come out to see us? Lone Star's eyes were gloomy like killing intent as he said coldly, so many people died because of him. If he didn't die, then wouldn't the others have died in vain? Tian Sha, how can you blame the deaths of others on Big Brother Dongwon? Scarlet Life Loyal Essence heard Tian Sha's words and could not help but frown, obviously very unhappy. When he was alive, everyone revolved around him. When he died, so many people followed him to the grave. Lone Star, on the other hand, had a stern expression as he said coldly, could it be that we can only be his vassals? Just because he is the Star Sacred Lord, he is the master? We are the Star Messengers, so we have to be his servants? Who made that rule? After he finished speaking, the heavenly cursed Lone Star's eyes flickered with an evil light. It was clear that he was surging with a chilling, killing intent. Sensing the frigid aura emanating from the heavenly cursed Lone Star, Nye Tian couldn't help but shiver inwardly. He didn't expect Lone Star to have such a strong hatred for the former Star Sky sacred leader. Sky Devil, is this what you've been holding in your heart all this time? Scarlet Life, Dan Xin looked at Sky Devil, frowned, and said in a deep voice. Lonely Star was silent for a moment. His eyes flashed coldly again. If Dong Wang Zhengrong is still alive, he must give me an explanation. If his words do not satisfy me, I will personally kill him. You? Scarlet Life Loyal Heart was at a loss for words. I'm leaving. Lonely Star said cold. He looked at Nye Tian and said, this is the last time I help you. Take care of yourself in the future. As soon as he finished speaking, his silhouette moved. He turned into a stream of light and disappeared instantly. He did not even listen to what happened with the dragon shepherds. It was as if all of this had nothing to do with him. Nye Tian looked in the direction where Lonely Star disappeared. He frowned and shook his head. It seemed that there was a deep misunderstanding between Lonely Star and Dong Wang Zhengrong. It could even be said that there was hatred between them. Back when Tang 13 had left with the cursed Lone Star, Nyetian had wanted to ask her about her situation. However, the cursed Lone Star had already left. Sigh. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart sighed and did not speak for a long time. At this moment, the biggest question in his mind was, is Dong Huang Zhengrong still alive? Nyetian had the same question, but he was more inclined to believe that the mysterious person was not Dong Huang Zhengrong. But if the mysterious person was not Dong Huang Zhengrong, then who was it? How could he activate Dong Huang Zhengrong's natal star rune? Everything was like a huge mystery. Nyetian's mind was in a mess. Nyetian, it's enough that we only know about this. Don't tell anyone else. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart looked at Nyetian and said carefully, I know. Nyetian smiled. He was not an idiot. How could he tell others about this? Friend, you can tell us about the dragon shepherds now. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart nodded and said to Ancestor Wu Ming. Ancestor Wu Ming nodded and began to talk about the dragon tribe and the dragon shepherds. I see. Nyetian and Scarlet Life Loyal Heart's expression changed after hearing Ancestor Wu Ming's story. None of them had expected that Nyetian actually had such a heaven-shaking secret. Brother Wu Ming, are you sure that Nyetian is the legendary dragon shepherd of a dragon clan? The Crimson Life Dan Hart calmed down and asked Patriarch Wu Ming. I'm sure. Ancestor Wu Ming nodded and said, although the dragon shepherds have always been a legend, when Nyetian awakened the ancestral dragon scar, the image of the dragon shepherds appeared in my divine sense. This is definitely not wrong. Chapter 38:14. This. Nyetian and Scarlet Life Dan Xian saw that Ancestor Wu Ming was so determined. Their expressions changed and their hearts sank. At this time, it was basically confirmed that Nyetian was the legendary dragon shepherd of the dragon clan. Otherwise, he would not have disturbed the Daikarma ruins. And now, the biggest threat in front of Nyetian was from the Daikarma ruins. The Daikarma ruins was the top taboo of the dragon clan. It was a super existence that had been frozen for thousands of years. It was definitely not a good thing for Nyetian to be targeted by it. The Black Dragon triple evils had appeared this time. Who knew who would appear next time? Maybe the Daikarma ruins would show up in person. Nyetian had multiple identities, but his own strength was too weak. In front of an expert of the Daikarma ruins level, he had no ability to protect himself. Moreover, even Scarlet Life Dan Xian and the others might not be able to fight against the Daikarma ruins. The Black Dragon triple evils that had just awakened already made Scarlet Life Dan Xian feel overwhelmed. If other experts appeared, even if Scarlet Life Dan Xian stayed by Nyetian's side, it might not be able to protect him. And the Daikarma ruin strength was even more unfathomable. It should be known that when the Dragon Clan was at its peak, the Daikarma ruins almost destroyed the entire Dragon Clan with its own strength. One could imagine how strong it was. Moreover, a super existence that had been frozen for thousands of years might even have the possibility of breaking through the limits of the Saint Realm. When Nyetian thought of this, he suddenly felt more pressure, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Brother Wu Ming, do you have any way to help Nyetian avoid the Daikarma ruins search? Scarlet Life Dan Xian was also nervous at this moment. He looked at Ancestor Wu Ming and asked in a deep voice. Nyetian had just awakened the mark of the ancestral dragon, and the Daikarma ruins had found him in a very short time. There must be some special method. The only way for Nyetian to survive was to avoid the Daikarma ruins search. The Dai ruins is far away in the primordial dragon domain, but the wood dragon energy released when Nyetian awakened the mark of the ancestral dragon still woke it up. Old Ancestor Wu Ming said with a gloomy face, I guess that the reason why the Daikarma ruins could find Nyetian in such a short time was that they must have sensed the chi of the dragon herding. In the future, if Nyetian doesn't use the dragon chi in his body, it won't be easy to find him in the Daikarma ruins. This, Nyetian couldn't help but frown upon hearing Patriarch Wu Nether's words. He still had a long way to go and would inevitably encounter danger in the future. The ancestral dragon energy was one of the trump cards he could rely on. If it was a moment of life and death, couldn't he use the stone dragon's dragon chi? If that was the case, his battle prowess would be greatly reduced, and he might not even be as strong as he was before he awakened the mark of the ancestral dragon. However, this method will only increase the difficulty of searching the Emperor Karma ruins. Then, old Ancestor Wuming said again, "There's only one way to get rid of the Daikarma ruins search." "What is it?" Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart, and Nyetian's eyes trembled at the same time, and they exclaimed. Old Ancestor Wuming's eyes were cold as he stared at Nyetian and said word by word, "Destroy the dragon's vein." Destroy the dragon's vein? Nyetian's eyes trembled, and he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He even suspected that he had heard wrongly. His dragon's vein was his Yuan meridian. However, old Ancestor Wuming actually wanted him to destroy his Yuan meridian. Wasn't this equivalent to asking him to cripple his own martial arts? Brother Wuming, are you joking? Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart, of course, knew what old Ancestor Wuming's words meant. His face sank, and he said cold, "Does I look like he's joking?" Old Ancestor Wuming asked with a cold expression. "Senior Wuming, you're not really going to destroy my dragon's vein, are you?" Nyetian's eyes trembled, and he asked in astonishment. Destroying the dragon's vein is the way to completely cut off the ancestral dragon chi in your body. Only in this way can you avoid the search of the Daikarma ruins. Old Ancestor Wuming looked at Nyetian and said solemnly, "This." Nyetian's face froze, and he was speechless. Of course, destroying the dragon's vein would allow him to get rid of the Daikarma ruins, but in this way, he would be equivalent to a useless person. What was the point of living like this? No, absolutely not. Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart's eyes were gloomy, and he refused coldly. He would never allow Nyetian to become a useless person. "Nyetian, what about you?" Old Ancestor Wuming looked at Nyetian with a strange expression. "I can't destroy the dragon's vein just to get rid of someone." Nyetian calmed down and said coldly, "If you can't avoid it, then let the Daikarma ruins come." "Very well." Old Ancestor Wuming suddenly smiled strangely when he felt the determination in Nyetian's eyes. "What do you mean?" Nyetian went blank for a moment, his face filled with confusion. Could it be that old Ancestor Wuming was testing me just now? "Nyetian, I just wanted to test you to see if you're a coward." Old Ancestor Wuming smiled again and said, "You're very good. You're not afraid of the Daikarma ruins." Nyetian frowned and was speechless. He was very doubtful. Was there really any meaning to such a test? No normal person would destroy their own dragon's vein just to avoid someone. Only those who were greedy for life and afraid of death to the extreme would do such a stupid thing. Old Ancestor Wuming's mouth twitched, and his expression was a little strange. In fact, he wanted to snatch Nyetian's dragon's vein just now. But now, he suddenly realized that Nyetian was really the one who could revive the legend of the Dragon Clan. This feeling was as if someone had suddenly engraved a brand in his spirit. It was incomparably deep. "Come with me, Nyetian." With a faint smile, Patriarch 5 Nether walked towards the cave in the middle of the valley. Nyetian and Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart felt that old Ancestor Wuming's change was a little strange. They looked at each other and followed him into the cave. After a while, Nyetian and the other two arrived at a secret chamber at the side of the cave. Nyetian looked at the empty secret chamber and asked in confusion, "Senior Wuming, why did you bring us here?" "Don't be anxious." Old Ancestor Wuming's lips twitched and revealed a mysterious smile. He then formed a strange seal with both hands and began to release a mysterious dragon's chi. Nyetian couldn't help but frown when he sensed the aura of the dragon's chi. He felt that there was a very strange aura in the dragon's chi that old Ancestor Wuming released. It seemed to be some kind of ancestral dragon's chi, but it was different from ordinary ancestral dragon's chi. Then, a strange scene appeared. The ancestral dragon's chi surged on the stone walls of the secret chamber and slowly seeped into them. Then, fine and dense dragon-shaped runes slowly appeared on the stone walls. "This is..." Nyetian's eyes trembled when he saw the dragon-shaped runes. He was so shocked that he was speechless. Chapter 38:15. Brilliance of the ancestral dragon. When Tian heard old ancestor Wu Ming's name, he couldn't help but be shocked. His eyes were filled with excitement. He could sense an extremely powerful aura from the rune-like runes. This kind of power made him feel unimaginably shocked. The runes seemed to contain an endless amount of dragon qi. They were vast and boundless, terrifying to the extreme. After a while, Tian became cold and asked old ancestor Wu Ming, Senior Wu Ming, what kind of power is this brilliance of the ancestral dragon? Why is it so terrifying? This power is too terrifying. Among all the powers that I have seen in my life, there are very few that can be compared to it. Scarlet Life Loyal Heart couldn't help but exclaim. In its long life, Scarlet Life Loyal Heart had seen countless strange powers in the world. However, there were very few powers that could be compared to the ancestral dragon tattoo. He was very curious about the power of the ancestral dragon tattoo. How could it be so powerful? The two of you, do you know that the dragon soul can exist for a long time after the death of a member of the dragon clan? Patriarch Wu Nether said with a faint smile. His eyes shone with a scorching light as he glanced at Tian and Patriarch Wu Nether. The dragon soul is indestructible. Tian and old ancestor Wu Ming were stunned at the same time. In the realm world, Tian had heard of the saying that the dragon soul was indestructible. Moreover, he had seen the dragon soul with his own eyes. However, the dragon clan in the realm world was different from the dragon clan in the sacred world. He didn't expect that the dragon soul of the sage realm dragon clan would be indestructible after death. Brother Wu Ming, you mean that these ancestral dragon tattoos are dragon souls? Scarlet Life Loyal Heart narrowed his eyes as he looked at old ancestor Wu Ming. You can say that. However, the ancestral dragon tattoo is not an ordinary dragon soul. Old ancestor Wu Ming smiled and said, the dragon soul is actually a kind of power. It's a dragon crystal formed by the dragon qi after the death of the dragon clan warrior. The strength of the dragon soul is related to the strength of the dragon clan warrior when he was alive. The more powerful the dragon race martial artist, the stronger their dragon soul. As for the ancestral dragon martial artists who possess the mark of the ancestral dragon, their dragon soul is different from ordinary dragon race martial artists. Their dragon qi contains the ancestral dragon qi. After an ancestral dragon martial artist dies, the dragon soul left behind will slowly condense and eventually become the ancestral dragon mark. The brilliance of the ancestral dragon tattoos that we are seeing right now are carved by the ancestral dragon tattoos according to a specific incantation. After saying that, old ancestor Wu Ming's eyes became dazed. Towards these ancestral dragon runes, he maintained a heart of reverence. These runes were all experts in the history of the dragon race. The marks left behind in this world prove that they once existed and were the proof of the dragon race's past glory. Senior Wu Ming, are you saying that these brilliant ancestral dragon runes were carved with the strongest ancestral dragon runes? Tian was shocked as he looked at ancestor Wu Ming. Yes. Old ancestor Wu Ming nodded and said, these brilliant ancestral dragon runes were left behind by the experts that existed in the history of the dragon race. The power contained within them is unimaginable. Tian's eyes narrowed, and he immediately took a deep breath. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He never imagined that these brilliant ancestral dragon runes before him actually came about like this. No wonder the brilliant ancestral dragon runes contained such powerful power. So that's how it is. The Scarlet Life Sacred Heart exclaimed and couldn't help saying, I once heard that the entire all-heaven sacred world was controlled by the dragon race a long time ago. It looks like it's true. These brilliant ancestral dragon runes were enough to prove how powerful the dragon race was in the past. These ancestral dragon martial artists could actually leave behind such powerful power after so many years. It could be seen how terrifying they were when they were alive. After a long while, Tian finally calmed down and asked old ancestor Wu Ming, Senior Wu Ming, why did you bring us to see these? Tian, you're the legendary dragon shepherd of the dragon race. Old ancestor Wu Ming's eyes trembled, and his voice trembled slightly. He said, "These brilliant ancestral dragon runes are all yours from now on. All of them are for me." Nye Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed, and he was stunned for a moment. He could sense the boundless power within the brilliant ancestral dragon runes. He obviously knew how powerful these brilliant ancestral dragon runes were. Now that old ancestor Wu Ming had actually given the brilliant ancestral dragon runes to him, how could he not be excited? Yes, old ancestor Wu Ming nodded heavily with a solemn expression. It seemed that, to him, giving the brilliant ancestral dragon runes to Nye Tian was a very important matter. This, Nye Tian reacted, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He hesitated and said, "Senior, this doesn't seem appropriate." "There's nothing inappropriate about it." Ancestor Wu Ming shook his head and said, "You're a dragon shepherd. These glory of the ancestral dragon can help you escape the search of the Daikarma ruins." "Really?" Nye Tian's eyes trembled as he exclaimed in surprise. He did not expect the ancestral dragon glory to have such an effect. "Yes." Ancestor Wu Ming nodded. "The brilliance ancestral dragon rune contains an unimaginable amount of ancestral dragon chi. As long as you absorb and fuse with it, you'll be able to conceal the ancestral dragon chi in your body. Although this method can't completely get rid of the Emperor's Karma ruins, it's absolutely impossible for the Emperor's Karma ruins to find you. It's not easy for me." Nye Tian's eyes were burning and trembling. He couldn't help but nod. Using the glorious ancestral dragon mark's ancestral dragon chi to conceal the ancestral dragon chi was not a bad idea. The Scarlet Life Loyal Heart looked at the ancestral dragon rune on the stone wall, and its face was filled with joy. Naturally, Nye Tian was very happy that he could obtain the ancestral dragon glare. This way, Nye Tian would undoubtedly become stronger. After a while, Nye Tian suppressed his excitement and asked with a faint smile, "Senior Wu Ming, how do I take these ancestral dragon runes away?" "That's easy." Ancestor Wu Ming nodded with a smile. An ancient book appeared in his hand, and he opened it. Immediately, a wave of energy spread out, and a miraculous scene happened. The ancestral dragon runes on the stone wall surged and merged into the book in Ancestor Wu Ming's hand. Nye Tian and the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart were shocked. After a while, all the ancestral dragon runes flowed into the book like runes. Chapter 38:16. The Book of the Ancestral Dragon. Nye Tian looked at the book in his hand and exclaimed in surprise. "Yes." Old ancestor Wu Ming nodded. The Book of the Ancestral Dragon is one of the 3 books passed down by the Dragon Clan. Rumor has it that it records a great secret of the Dragon Clan. For a long time, the Nether Dragon Clan has been in charge of the Book of the Ancestral Dragon. But the Book of the Ancestral Dragon is very spiritual. Only those who are recognized by the book spirit can open it. In the history of the Dragon Clan, the most talented cultivator only managed to open the Book of the Ancestral Dragon to the 7th page. Old ancestor Wu Ming smiled bitterly as he spoke with a look of pity. He also wanted to know what was recorded in the Book of the Ancestral Dragon, but with his strength, he could only open the book to the 3rd page. "Nye Tian, you can try to open the Book of the Ancestral Dragon." After that, Ancestor Wu Ming's gaze turned slightly hot, and it flickered with a strange and blazing light as he spoke with excitement. He was curious and excited at the same time. He wanted to see if the legendary dragon shepherds could open the Book of the Ancestral Dragon. "Yes." The corner of Nye Tian's mouth curled up into a smile. He nodded and took a deep breath. With a thought, the Ancestral Dragon book slowly opened. It's really opened. Old ancestor Wu Ming's eyes were filled with shock and joy when he saw this. He had already guessed that Nye Tian should be able to open the Book of the Ancestral Dragon. But when this scene really happened, he still felt very shocked. Nye Tian smiled and carefully looked at the Book of the Ancestral Dragon. His eyes shone with a blazing light. The first page of the Book of the Ancestral Dragon was the brilliance of the Ancestral Dragon that old ancestor Wu Ming had just absorbed. But on the Book of the Ancestral Dragon, the brilliance of the Ancestral Dragon was engraved like runes. They faintly connected to form a strange picture like some kind of totem. Nietian wanted to see what the picture was, but when he focused, he found that his consciousness seemed to have fallen into a huge whirlpool, making him feel very uncomfortable. What's going on? Nietian couldn't help but frown with a puzzled expression. Nietian, with your current strength, it's already very impressive for you to be able to open the first page of the Ancestral Dragon Book. Patriarch Wu Nether looked at Nietian and guessed his doubts. He smiled faintly and said, "It's not easy to figure out what the totem on the first page is. Back then but it took me thousands of years to see this totem clearly." This, Nietian was stunned, and his face darkened. Spending thousands of years to clearly see a picture was simply too shocking. Nietian looked at Patriarch Wu Nether and asked, "Senior Wu Nether, what is this totem?" I've said it before, the Ancestral Dragon Book is sentient. Every person who activates it will see a different scene. Ancestor Wuming smiled. "It's useless even if I tell you what I see. It will only confuse you instead." This, Nietian couldn't help but frown upon hearing Patriarch Wu Nether's words and fell silent again. He didn't expect the Ancestral Dragon Book to be so magical. "All right." Ancestor Wuming smiled again. "Nietian, the glory of the Ancestral Dragon is already in the book, and you've already opened the first page. You can slowly absorb the power of the runes in the future. But let me remind you, don't try to open the Ancestral Dragon Book before you have enough strength." The second page of the book. "Why?" Nietian's eyes narrowed as he blurted out. "You're a dragon shepherd. No one knows what will appear on the second page when you open the Ancestral Dragon Book. Perhaps the Daikarma ruin will discover your existence." Ancestor Wuming's expression sank. "As far as I know, the Daikarma ruin also has one of the 3 great books of the dragon race. Rumor has it that there's a connection between the 3 great books." "I see." Nietian smiled faintly and closed the Ancestral Dragon Book. Ancestor Wuming smiled and said to Nietian, "Nietian, you could try to absorb some glory of the Ancestral Dragon runes now. It will weaken the dragon shepherd chi in your body." Nietian nodded and looked at the Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart. Seeing the Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart again, he was most concerned about Mo Rushi and her son. The Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart knew what Nietian was thinking and nodded. "Don't worry. They're by my side. I'll protect them with my life." "Thank you, Senior Scarlet Life." Nietian nodded and bowed to the Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart. The Crimson Life, Loyal Heart chuckled, then said something to Nietian and left. He was the president of the Heaven Martial Association after all, so he couldn't leave for too long. Plus, he was injured and needed to go back to heal. Nietian didn't ask him to stay. He sent the Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart away with Ancestor Wuming. "Nietian, it seems like you have other responsibilities besides being a dragon shepherd." Ancestor Wuming looked in the direction where the Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart left and smiled. He had already guessed that Nietian's identity was extraordinary when he heard the Scarlet Life, Loyal Heart mention the Star Sacred Lord. Otherwise, considering Nietian's strength, he wouldn't have attracted the attention of 2 peak heavenly martial divine ancestors at the same time. But since Nietian didn't say anything, he didn't ask. Besides, he didn't really care. He only needed to know that Nietian was a dragon shepherd. That was enough. As for Nietian's other identities, it might not be a bad thing. Nietian smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Then, he and Ancestor Wuming returned to the cave. Ancestor Wuming asked Nietian to enter a secret chamber to absorb the glory of the ancestral dragon pattern. Originally, Nietian had planned to leave immediately, as he was still worried about Schwerer. He had already done what the Onyx Emperor wanted him to do, but because of the Black Dragon Triad, he was separated from the Onyx Emperor. Now, he had to find the Onyx Emperor as soon as possible. But Ancestor Wuming insisted that he absorb the glory of the ancestral dragon pattern first. He didn't want Nietian to attract other unwanted guests after he left the valley. Nietian thought about it and finally decided to absorb the glory of the ancestral dragon pattern first. He thought that even though the Onyx Emperor was ruthless, he wouldn't go back on his word. And he couldn't think of any reason why the Onyx Emperor would harm Cher. Hurting Cher wouldn't do the Onyx Emperor any good. The legendary dragon shepherd, How many glory of the ancestral dragon patterns can you absorb? Ancestor Wu Ming waited outside the secret chamber. He was looking forward to seeing how many glory of the ancestral dragon patterns Nie Tian could absorb when he walked out of the secret chamber. According to his speculation, it would already be very impressive if Nie Tian could completely absorb the power of the first glory of ancestral dragon pattern. Chapter 38:17. 3 days later, in the secret chamber, Nie Tian stood up slowly. His face was pale, and his body was drenched in cold sweat. He looked like he was about to collapse. However, his aura was extremely strange. It was much stronger than a few days ago. His lips curled into a smile, and he took a deep breath. A moment later, his expression returned to normal. "I've finally fused 3 ancestral dragon patterns in 3 days," he murmured. His eyes were sharp, but he felt that it was a pity. He originally wanted to use 3 days to fuse 10 ancestral dragon patterns. However, he didn't expect that the ancestral dragon pattern would be so difficult to fuse. The power contained within it was too strong. He only fused 3 ancestral dragon patterns in 3 days. According to Patriarch Wu Ming, the entire ancestral dragon book was filled with ancestral dragon patterns. Nie Tian had already examined the first page of the Dragon Ancestor book with rapt attention and discovered that there were a total of 999 dragon patterns on it. The ancestral dragon patterns were inscribed with the dragon souls of ancestral dragon warriors. Nie Tian estimated that every ancestral dragon warrior's dragon soul was an ancestral dragon pattern. Therefore, the power of each ancestral dragon pattern was different. There were weak and strong ones. The 3 brilliant ancestral dragon patterns that he had fused with were the weakest of the 999 brilliant ancestral dragon patterns. However, even the 3 weakest ancestral dragon patterns were enough to raise his strength from the 3rd heavenly mandate realm to the 5th heavenly mandate realm. His strength increased once again, increasing Nie Tian's battle strength. However, his greatest improvement was the 9 dragon veins. The power of the ancestral dragon pattern was fused with the 9 dragon veins. At this moment, he could clearly feel that the 9 dragon veins were several times stronger than before. He felt like he was bursting with power. The ancestral dragon pattern is indeed terrifying. It's just 3, but it increased my strength by 2 levels, Nie Tian murmured with a blazing gaze. He didn't expect the power of the ancestral dragon pattern to be this terrifying. After a while, he walked out of the secret chamber. Nie Tian, you succeeded in integrating the ancestral dragon rune? Old ancestor Wu Ming asked in pleasant surprise when he saw Nie Tian. He had not expected that Nie Tian would only need 3 days to walk out of the secret chamber. Nie Tian nodded with a confident smile. 3 days. Old ancestor Wu Ming frowned, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble. After that, his spiritual sense swept through Nie Tian's body and his face stiffened. He simply couldn't believe that he could really sense the aura of the ancestral dragon shine in Nie Tian's body. After the glorious ancestral dragon mark merged with a cultivator, its aura would not completely disappear. It would take some time before it could completely merge and become the cultivator's own strength. 3 days. In just 3 days, Nie Tian had actually managed to merge with the ancestral dragon shine. This was simply too terrifying. It had completely exceeded old ancestor Wu Ming's expectations. Back then, it took him 3 months to successfully fuse with one glorious ancestral dragon mark. At that time, he was very proud that he had used very little time. But now, compared to Nie Tian, he was simply trash. Nie Tian looked at old ancestor Wu Ming and nodded his head. He smiled bitterly. 3 days. Only 3 glorious ancestral dragon marks. Old ancestor Wu Ming nodded his head. Then, he realized that something was wrong. He immediately cried out, "What did you say?" "I said that I only fused with 3 glorious ancestral dragon marks." Nie Tian smiled bitterly again. He looked a little disappointed. 3 glorious ancestral dragon marks. Patriarch 5 Nether stood rooted to the spot for a few seconds before he finally came to his senses. His voice was trembling as he stared at Nietian in horror, as if he was looking at a monster, fusing with 3 glorious ancestral dragon marks in 3 days. If Nietian wasn't a monster, what was he? Senior Wu Ming, are you all right? Nietian couldn't help frowning when he saw old ancestor Wu Ming's reaction. Nietian, is that true? Old ancestor Wu Ming's eyes trembled as he asked in shock. Of course. Nietian chuckled. Why would he lie about something like this? Old ancestor Wu Ming's eyes trembled again as he carefully sensed Nietian's dragon vein. As expected, he sensed 3 different auras. His face that had just calmed down froze again, and he couldn't say a word for a long time. Nietian frowned. He didn't understand why old ancestor Wu Ming had such a huge reaction. Senior Wu Ming, thank you for taking care of me these days. I still have something to do and have to leave. Nietian didn't wait for old ancestor Wu Ming's reaction. You're leaving now? Old ancestor Wu Ming finally calmed down a little, but he still asked in shock. Yes. Nietian nodded heavily. He was very worried about Cher and had to leave immediately. Old ancestor Wu Ming could only smile bitterly when he saw Nietian's resolute gaze. He said, I was originally planning to let Chia leave with you. It looks like it's too late now. Xin Chia is already a human killer star venerate. We will definitely meet again. Nietian smiled faintly and said with certainty, yes. Old ancestor Wu Ming knew that he couldn't make Nietian stay, so he could only nod. Following that, Nietian didn't stay for long and left the valley. Old ancestor Wu Ming originally wanted to send him off, but Xiaochen refused. After what happened earlier, very few people in the 5 underworld sacred world would dare to provoke Nietian. Furthermore, old ancestor Wu Ming was injured and in urgent need of recovery. Nietian didn't want to trouble him anymore. After leaving the valley, Nietian headed for Demon Wind City and entered the Beast Arena. Lord Nietian, Lord Mo Feng has been waiting for you for a long time. This way, please. As soon as Nietian entered the Beast Arena, a black-robed cultivator appeared and spoke respectfully to Nietian. Yes, of course, Nietian knew that Mo Feng was the Netherworld Monarch. He nodded and gestured for the black-robed cultivator to lead the way. After a while, Nietian arrived outside a hall in the Beast Arena. Little kid, I was looking for you. I didn't expect you to appear by yourself. Just as Xiaochen was about to enter the hall, a familiar voice suddenly rang in his spiritual sense, causing him to freeze. This voice belonged to the divine soul within the heart of all evil. Back when Nietian wanted to kill the Holy Son of Evil, this divine soul had stopped him and used the Holy Son of Evil's life to make a deal with Nietian. As long as Nietian didn't kill the Holy Son of Evil, the divine soul would tell Nietian one thing. It was just that the matter of the 5 tribulations and the Black Dragon 3 evils happened later, which made Nietian a little busy, and he almost forgot about this matter. He didn't expect to encounter this divine soul again in the Beast Arena of Demon Wind City. Lord Nietian, this way, please. At this time, the black-robed cultivator looked at Nietian and said with a bow. This person clearly noticed that Nietian's expression was a little off. Little kid, you deal with the matter in front of you first. We'll talk about our matter later. The divine soul was considerate and said with a chuckle. Sure, Nietian answered, and then directly walked into the hall. The Emperor of the Underworld was sitting in the main hall. His eyes were filled with a deep glint, but his face was very unsightly. Chapter 38:18. Left. Hearing the Emperor of the Underworld's words, Nietian's pupils shrank abruptly, and he growled almost instinctively. What do you mean? She has already left, the Emperor of the Underworld said with a gloomy expression, his eyes darkening slightly. Impossible. Nietian's face darkened, and he said cold, Cher hasn't seen me yet. She won't leave. She really wants to see you before leaving, but someone disagrees, the Emperor of the Underworld said gravely after a few seconds of silence. Speak clearly. Nietian's face darkened suddenly, and he yelled cold in a low voice. She was taken away by that traitor, the Emperor of the Underworld said gravely. Blazing flames of the 9 blades. Nietian's pupils shrank again, and he uttered the name word by word. His eyes instantly became murderous, with a touch of dark red, like a ferocious beast that was about to go berserk. The Emperor of the Underworld nodded solemnly, and he said nothing more. What about you? Suddenly, Nietion's figure moved abruptly, and he stretched out one hand. An invisible force whizzed out and lifted the Emperor of the Underworld into the air. It was as if an invisible giant hand had clamped down on the Emperor of the Underworld's neck. Nietion, you... The Emperor of the Underworld's face was flushed with blood, and his eyes were filled with terror. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't utter a word. The invisible hand seemed to have a tremendous force, making it difficult for him to breathe. He didn't expect Nietion's strength to have improved to such an extent in just a few days' time. Although Nietion had attacked instantly, he shouldn't have been suppressed to the point where he couldn't fight back. What had Nietion experienced in the past few days? Lord Demon Edge. At this moment, a dozen black-robed figures appeared in the surrounding void, and they cried out at the same time, but they stopped, not daring to move forward. Back off! Back off! The Emperor of the Underworld waved his hand with difficulty, resisting the excruciating pain. Of course, he could feel that Nietion's killing intent was extremely heavy at this moment. If these black-clothed men dared to come forward, Nietion would absolutely not hesitate to kill them. Nietion, don't be impulsive, the Underworld Emperor said with difficulty, his face red. We agreed that I would help you get the power of the 5 calamities, and you would let Cher go. Nietion's eyes were cold and murderous. He said cold. Now where is Cher? No sooner had he said this than Jing Jiao clenched his fist in the air. The Underworld Emperor felt suffocated. At this moment, as long as Nietion exerted a little more force, he would be able to kill the Emperor of the Underworld. I know where they have gone, the Underworld Emperor said with all his might, his eyes trembling. Nietion's eyes suddenly darkened. The strength in his hand weakened a little as he asked in a deep voice, "Where did they go?" The illusory Civ realm. The Underworld Emperor said a name with trembling eyes. Speak clearly, Nietion said cold, his eyes dark and murderous. The illusory Civ realm is the ancestral land of the 3 life race. They're going there to find something. The Underworld Emperor felt the pressure lessen. His expression relaxed, and he became much calmer. The ancestral land of the 3 life race. Nietion's eyes darkened slightly, and a strange light flashed through them. It seemed that Lian Jiofeng had said something to Cher, or Cher would not have left without saying goodbye. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility that Cher had been threatened when she left with Lian Jiofeng. However, with Cher's personality, it was unlikely that she would be threatened. Do you know what they are looking for? Nietion became much colder. He looked at the Underworld Emperor and asked. I don't know. The Underworld Emperor shook his head. Lian Jiofeng had come in a very domineering manner. There was no way he would tell him what they were looking for. Then do you know how to get to the illusory Civ realm? Nietion asked cold with a much darker gaze. The Underworld Emperor's expression froze slightly. A strange expression appeared on his face. He said, Nietion, Lian Jiofeng knew that you would come. He told me to tell you not to look for them. Even if you did, you would not be able to find them. Why didn't Lian Jiofeng kill you back then? Nietion asked cold with a dark expression. He was really curious why Lian Jiofeng did not kill the Underworld Emperor directly after coming to Demon Wind City. Did he not want the heaven-punishing demon heart in the Underworld Emperor's body? He naturally has his reasons for not killing me. The Underworld Emperor's eyes trembled. He said, I advise you not to go to the illusory Civ realm. I must go to the illusory Civ realm. Nietion said cold with a dark expression. And you must tell me how to find Lian Jiofeng. Nietion, the illusory Civ realm may only be a middle-rank sacred world, but its territory is extremely vast. The 3 life races' ancestral grounds are located in an extremely remote place. Even if you go to the illusory Civ realm, you will not be able to find the 3 life races' ancestral grounds. The Underworld Emperor's expression was ugly. Nietion was making things difficult for him. Didn't you kill everyone from a 3 life race back then? If you say that you do not know where the three life races' ancestral grounds are, do you think I will believe you? Nietion's expression was dark, and his eyes flickered with cold, killing intent. His gaze was cold and murderous. It was filled with a strong sense of threat. The Underworld Emperor could feel Nietion's killing intent. His pupils contracted involuntarily. He could not hide his fear. He had already witnessed Nietion's terror. With his strength, he could kill him in an instant. Qin City's Mu clan. After a moment of silence, the Underworld Emperor finally spoke. After you reach the illusory Civ realm, find this clan. They will tell you where the three life races' ancestral grounds are. Qin City's Mu clan. Nietion's gaze trembled slightly. He was somewhat worried. I can only tell you this much. Also, I cannot guarantee that the Qin City's Mu clan will still exist after so much time has passed. The Underworld Emperor knew what Nietion was worried about. He said, if you still want to kill me now, then do it. But let me warn you, if you kill me, you can forget about leaving the demonic Wind City. Nietion's expression was gloomy. After a long time, he turned and left. The Underworld Emperor looked at Nietion's back. His tense nerves immediately relaxed. At this moment, over a dozen black-clothed cultivators appeared behind him. One of them took a step forward and said coldly, Lord Emo Fong, do you want to kill this brat? Let him go. The Underworld Emperor smiled and waved his hand slightly. He wanted to kill Nietion very much. However, he did not dare to. Disregarding whether or not there were experts hiding around Nietion right now, just Nietion's identity made him very wary. He even doubted if these cultivators before him had the ability to kill Nietion. There were too many secrets about Nietion that he didn't know. Killing Nietion at this time was definitely not a wise choice. Moreover, the Underworld Emperor had another plan in mind. He wanted to borrow Nietion's hand to eliminate Lian Jiofeng. However, he felt that Nietion's trip to the illusory Civ realm this time was likely to be fruitless. Chapter 38:19. After leaving the Colosseum, Nietion headed straight for the Sacred World Net in the Demon Wind City. He wanted to go to the Void Net realm immediately. Kid, you're in such a hurry. Don't tell me you're leaving the 5 Underworld Sacred World? At that moment, the divine soul within the heart of evil spoke again with a hint of mockery in its tone. Speak. What do you want to tell me? Nietion could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. Why are you in such a hurry? Looks like you're leaving. The divine soul laughed and said regretfully, This is the first time I've seen such an interesting kid like you. I really can't bear to part with you so soon. Nietion frowned and could not help but feel speechless. He had not come into contact with the divine soul at all, so the latter's words were really strange. Kid, are you going to another saint's world? Afterwards, the soul smiled again and asked curiously, All right, let's go to the Sacred World Internet Net first. I'll explain it to you in detail when we get there. The divine soul chuckled mysteriously. Nietion frowned and thought for a moment before heading straight for the Sacred World Net. About half an hour later, he arrived at the Demon Wind City's Sacred World Net. Because he had a conflict with the martialist guarding the Sacred World Net before, he was afraid of causing unnecessary misunderstandings, so he simply changed his appearance. Space-time scar. It's this feeling again. When he arrived outside the Sacred World Net, Nietion looked at the floating light spheres in the Sacred World Net and thought to himself, those light spheres were the connection points of the Sacred World Net, called space-time scar. Every time Nietion saw a space-time scar, he would have a strange feeling. The 4th star mark in his body seemed to be affected by the space-time scar. It slowly became violent and released a terrifying impact. The impact made his body feel like it was being torn apart and burned. Although Nietion's martial body was much stronger now, he could not help but turn pale when he faced the stimulation of a space-time scar. Sweat the size of beans seeped out of his forehead. Little fella, looks like you have a reaction. At this time, the voice of the soul rang again. It chuckled and seemed very proud of itself. You know what's going on? Nietion's eyes darkened, and his expression changed as he exclaimed. This divine soul wasn't surprised at all. This meant that he already knew that Nietion would have such a reaction. In fact, he was waiting for this reaction from Yetion. Don't worry. The secret I want to tell you is about the fourth star scar dark seal in your body. The godly soul said with a strange smile. You know the star-streaked dark seal? Yetion's eyes couldn't help but tremble. He was astounded and extremely shocked. He did not expect that this divine soul would know about the star scar dark seal, and would even specifically mention the fourth star scar dark seal. At this moment, Yetion had unsealed the fourth star marked dark seal. Don't be surprised. I've lived for so long. It's not strange that I know some things about the star origin stone. The divine soul did not seem to care. He smiled and said, Little fella, you're so young, but you can actually unseal the third star marked dark seal with the star origin stone. Who the hell are you? Yetion's face turned incomparably gloomy. His eyes trembled as he roared. This person's understanding of the star origin stone was far beyond his expectations. After all, even the Star Lords and the Star Envoys did not have such an understanding of the star origin stone. Yetion wanted to know who this divine soul was. You don't have to worry about who I am. All you need to do is listen to what I'm going to say next. The divine soul was still relaxed. He smiled faintly and said, The key to unsealing the fourth star marked dark seal is the space-time scar. However, the space-time scar of the net of the Saint's world is too weak. You need to find a more powerful space-time scar. After absorbing it, you can unseal the fourth star marked dark seal. Yetion's face darkened. He frowned deeply. It turned out that this was what the divine soul wanted to tell him. Previously, he had a special reaction to the space-time scar. He had already guessed that the space-time scar might be related to unsealing the fourth star marked dark seal. However, the confirmation of this guess came from the mouth of a person he did not know at all. He did not expect this. Little fella, your strength has improved a lot during this time. The speed of your growth has exceeded my expectations. However, your martial body can perfectly accept the increase in strength. This is good news for you. Following that, the divine soul laughed and said, I believe that you will definitely find a more powerful space-time scar. I look forward to your growth, space-time scar. Yetion's face was grim, and his eyes were trembling. At this moment, he felt like he was being manipulated. He had no idea who the other party was, but the other party seemed to know him very well. This gap in understanding made him feel vaguely uneasy. Little fella, I will take my leave. We will definitely meet again. The next time we meet, I will give you an even bigger surprise. The voice of the divine soul sounded again and then disappeared completely. Astonishment filled Yetion's face as he stood rooted to the ground for a long time. Who is this fella? What is his relationship with the star origin stone? After a long time, Yetion calmed down slightly. He could not help but feel puzzled. At this moment, he had a guess in his mind, but he did not want to face it. He suspected that this divine soul might be the previous Star Sky sacred leader, Dongwang Zhengron. However, he did not dare to continue guessing. Subconsciously, he rejected this guess. In the 5 Underworld sacred world, he had already met 2 people who could be Dongwang Zhengron. The first was the mysterious person who had secretly helped him. The second was the divine soul that had just left. He even suspected that the mysterious person and the divine soul were the same person. However, a guess was just a guess. If he thought about it carefully, such a guess was somewhat unrealistic. After a while, Yetion let out a long breath and stopped thinking about these things. Right now, the most important thing in front of him was to go to the virtual sky realm and look for Cher. After a few hours, Yetion entered the net of the sacred world. He arrived outside a space-time tunnel and stepped in. When he stepped out again, the world in front of him was completely different. He looked around and realized that he was in a mountain range surrounded by huge, thorny trees. Looks like this is the virtual sky realm. Yetion smiled faintly and felt much more relaxed. Chapter 38:20. When Yetion heard the cry for help, his figure instantly moved and whistled toward a forest. At the same time, an unbearable scene was taking place in a forest. Several men in black were forcefully tearing apart the clothes of a woman. The person who was crying for help was this woman. Fanghu, if you dare touch my sister, I'll fight it out with you. On the other side, a low growl that still carried a hint of childishness rang out. A small figure appeared and directly charged towards the men in black. The figure was a child around 10 years old. Although he was small, his eyes were extremely fierce like a wild wolf. "Get lost!" When one of the men saw the child rushing over, he turned around and waved his hand. A gust of wind swept over and directly sent the child flying. The child heavily crashed into a huge tree several meters thick, abruptly smashing the huge tree in half. Although the child was stubborn, he was still young and weak. After breaking the huge tree, he lay on the ground and couldn't get up. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were even fiercer. He crawled on the ground with both hands and approached the men in black as if he was going to eat them. However, his reaction caused the black-clothed men to become even more arrogant, and they began to laugh maniacally. "Ha, this little bastard has some guts. He even wants to crawl over. Let's just kill this kid. It won't be good if he returns alive and spouts nonsense in the village. He's the son of the village chief. I'm afraid it won't be good to just kill him." The men laughed as they discussed. In the end, they stopped looking at the child and focused their attention on the woman. "Xiao Fei, hurry up and leave. Don't worry about me." The woman screamed when she saw her brother being beaten up. Her eyes were filled with despair. "You bastards, how dare you hurt my sister? If my father finds out, he won't let you off." The child didn't leave. Instead, he crawled and yelled, "Little bastard, your sister will be sent away tomorrow anyway. Before she leaves, let us enjoy her first." "What's wrong with that?" One of the men chuckled and extended his pig hand toward the woman. "Fong Hu, my father won't let you off." The woman screamed and instinctively backed away. However, she fell to the ground. When the men in black saw this, they immediately pounced forward. "Stop!" But right at this moment, a low and icy cold voice resounded, and it was ghastly to the extreme and revealed resolute and murderous intent. The men were stunned. They immediately turned around and saw a silver-haired man standing there like a sharp blade, exuding a strong, killing intent. "Where did this stinking brat come from? How dare he spoil my good?" One of them reacted and growled. However, he only managed to finish half of his sentence before he stopped abruptly. He instinctively touched his neck, but his head fell to the ground. When the others saw this scene, they were instantly dumbfounded and speechless. They didn't even see when the silver-haired man made his move. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation in the air. Without a doubt, the silver-haired man was too strong, so strong that they could not even imagine it. This silver-haired man was none other than Tian. At this moment, his face was filled with killing intent as he slowly walked toward the men. With every step he took, the murderous intent in his eyes grew stronger. What are you trying to do?" The men were so scared that their faces turned pale. Their legs turned to jelly as they trembled, and they were about to fall to their knees. "Scum who's worse than animals," Nie Tianling said coldly. His killing intent seemed to have solidified and shrouded the men so tightly that they felt like they were suffocating. "Oui." The men wanted to say something, but they suddenly felt a cold aura flowing around their bodies. They lowered their heads and saw their bodies falling to the ground in pieces. Nie Tian had used his sword intent to dismember these men while they were still alive. In an instant, the men turned into pieces of flesh and blood that fell to the ground. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. The men's heads were even blinking as they stared at their own bodies in despair. The heads will live for a period of time after they leave their bodies. "I hope you'll enjoy this final moment of despair," Nie Tianling said coldly. His entire being was so cold that it sent chills down one's spine. When the woman saw this, she was so frightened that she fainted. Nie Tian's lips twitched. Then a ball of flame surged out from his palm and incinerated the corpses in front of him. Then he took a step forward and confirmed the woman's aura. After making sure that she was fine, he was about to leave. He did not want to waste any more time. He believed that the woman would return home on her own after she woke up. Yes, benefactor. However, at that moment, a young voice was heard behind him. Nie Tian's gaze froze, and he immediately looked behind him. The child had stood up and was looking at him gratefully. The child was not frightened after witnessing the bloody scene. Instead, he was so calm that Nyetian could not help but be surprised. He had already sensed that the child had suffered some flesh injuries, but they were not fatal. He would recover after resting for a period of time. Therefore, he decided to leave. "Little fellow, what's your name?" Nyetian looked at the child and asked with a faint smile. "Benefactor, my name is Mu Yang." Muchen looked at Nyetian and couldn't help but laugh. "Mu." When Nyetian heard the surname Mu, his pupils constricted and his heart trembled. It can't be such a coincidence, right? When he came to the virtual Luo realm, the first place he wanted to look for was the Mu clan in Qin City. At this moment, a child with the surname Mu appeared before him, and he had no choice but to pay attention to it. "Mu Chun, do you know about Qin City?" Nyetian became cold and probed. "Qin City? What place is that?" Mu Chun frowned, and his little face was filled with confusion. "It doesn't seem like it." Nyetian's lips twitched, and he smiled bitterly. "Benefactor, are you going to Qin City? Go back with me and ask my father. He will definitely know where Qin City is." Mu Chun was very smart, and he smiled slyly. Nyetian turned to look at the woman behind him. He thought for a moment and nodded in the end. He planned to send the Mu siblings home. It wouldn't take up much time anyway, and he could ask Mu Chen's father about Qin City. Perhaps Mu Chen's family was really related to the Mu clan in Qin City. After making up his mind, Nyetian lifted the woman up with his hand, and he let the little fellow lead the way with Mu Chun. Chapter 38:21. Nyetian looked at the martial artists around him. His lips twitched slightly, but his face was calm. Most of these people were false saints. There were only a few holy disciples, and they were all low-level holy disciples. Although this was a medium sacred world, it did not mean that everyone could reach the saint realm. "Who are you?" At this moment, one of the older cultivators stepped forward and sized up Nyetian. He asked in a very vigilant manner, appearing to be a little nervous. He had clearly sensed that Nyetian was very strong. In front of him, he was unfathomably strong. "Don't be nervous. I'm just passing by." Nyetian replied with a faint smile, trying his best to let these people relax. That person's eyes were slightly trembling. He had a suspicious look on his face. Obviously, he did not believe Nyetian. "Uncle Deng, don't be afraid. This big brother is my sister's benefactor. He saved us." At this moment, Mu Chun stepped forward and said to that person, "Benefactor." That person was stunned for a moment. He then looked at Mu Chun and said, "Mu Chun, tell me clearly. What is going on?" Mu Chun chuckled and recounted the events that had transpired earlier. It turned out that the few men who wanted to harm Mu Chun and his sister were from Fong Village, which was next to Iron Mountain Village. Unfortunately, they bumped into Nyetian when they were doing their evil deeds. Those people from Fong Village are insane. Uncle Deng's eyes were filled with rage after hearing Mu Chen's words, and he bellowed in a deep voice. The Iron Mountain Village and Fong Village were neighboring villages. There would occasionally be some friction between the two villages. However, it was the first time something as bad as this had happened. Those young men from Fong Village deserved to die. Besides, it's all because of the Mu clan's grand elder. Uncle Deng sighed helplessly. He then looked at Nyetian and said, "Young master, let me bring you to see the village chief." "Okay." Nyetian nodded. He was very interested in the Mu clan's grand elder that Uncle Deng mentioned. A moment later, under Uncle Deng's lead, Nyetian arrived at a small courtyard in the Iron Mountain Village and met Mu Chen's father, the village chief, Mu Yinshan. Mu Yinshan looked to be in his 30s, but his facial features were cold, giving off a sense of vicissitudes. After hearing Mu Chen's words, Mu Yinshan hastily bowed towards Nyetian, looking very sincere. "Many thanks, little brother." "It was nothing," Nyetian said with a faint smile, his face calm and unperturbed. After exchanging some pleasantries, Nyetian no longer stood on ceremony and directly asked, "Village chief, I'd like to ask if you know the Mu clan of Qin City." "Qin City's Mu clan?" Mu Yinshan's eyes could not help but tremble when he heard those words. He seemed extremely surprised. Nyetian's heart trembled when he saw Mu Yinshan's reaction. Mu Yunshan's reaction clearly showed that he knew about the Qin city's Mu family. I've never heard of it. Mu Yunshan immediately shook his head and denied it. You've never heard of it? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and his expression turned ugly. No. Mu Yunshan shook his head again with a firm expression. Nie Tian was a little disappointed when he saw Mu Yunshan's reaction, but he could not force him. Since that's the case, I'll take my leave. Nie Tian pondered for a moment and prepared to leave for the nearest city. Benefactor, please don't go. Please save my sister. However, at this time, Mu Chan suddenly walked over and looked at Nie Tian with a pair of watery eyes, imploring him. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment before he smiled. Mu Chun, isn't your sister fine? Why do you want to save her? My sister will be sent to the Mu abode tomorrow. Only Benefactor can save her. Mu Chun raised his head and looked at Nie Tian with a serious expression. Mu abode? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. Mu Chun. However, Mu Chun still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Mu Yunshan's growl. Mu Yunshan stood up and squeezed out a smile. Brother, it's just a kid's nonsense. Don't mind it. I'm not talking nonsense. My sister will be taken away tomorrow. I won't be able to see her again. Mu Chun did not let it go and shouted. Mu Chun, don't say any more. Mu Yunshan's expression suddenly changed and he growled. Mu Chun had a wronged expression. He wanted to say something but did not dare to. Tears immediately flowed down his face. Sigh. Mu Yunshan looked at Mu Chun and sighed helplessly. Village chief, if you have any difficulties, you can tell me. I'll definitely help you if I can. Nie Tian frowned and looked at Mu Yunshan. In fact, he hoped that Mu Yunshan would tell him about the difficulties he was facing so that he could continue to inquire about the Mu clan in Qin City. Sigh. Mu Yunshan sighed again and finally said it. It turned out that the closest city to the Iron Mountain village was called Nine Changes City. There were 3 major clans in Nine Changes City, and the Mu abode that Mu Chun mentioned was one of them, the Mu clan. All the villages within 10,000 miles of Nine Changes City were controlled by the 3 major clans. Tomorrow, the eldest misty of the Mu abode would be married to the 3rd young master of the Yi clan. The Mu clan would recruit the eldest misty of the Mu clan to be her dowry servants. Unfortunately, the Iron Mountain village was chosen and had to offer 3 dowry servants. As the village chief, Mu Yunshan had no choice but to offer his daughter as a dowry servant to the eldest misty of the Mu clan. The so-called dowry servants were actually slaves. To put it bluntly, they were servants that the bride gave to the groom. For a major clan like the Yi clan, once they entered, they would never be able to step out of the Yi clan for the rest of their lives. This was the predicament that Mu Yunshan was facing, and it was also the source of his pain. When Nie Tian heard Mu Yunshan's words, he couldn't help knitting his brows and asked, Village chief, how many people does the Mu abode need as a dowry? A few hundred. Mu Yunshan sighed with a helpless expression. Nie Tian knitted his brows, and a cold smile rose on the corner of his lips. A misty actually needs a few hundred dowry servants? This Mu abode is truly extravagant. Sigh. Mu Yunshan let out another long sigh. I have no other choice. Village chief, I'll accompany Miss Mu to the Nine Changes City tomorrow. I would like to see what the Mu abode and Yi clan are like. At this moment, Nie Tian faintly smiled. Chapter 38:22. Sensing the confidence in Nie Tian's eyes, Mu Yunshan couldn't help but shudder. He didn't know why the silver-haired young man was so confident, but he knew that Nie Tian was his only hope to save his daughter. Mu Yunshan calmed down and asked Nie Tian cautiously, Little brother, may I ask what level of cultivation you are at now? As a matter of fact, he had been secretly sensing Nie Tian's strength the moment he had shown up, hoping to find out how strong he was now. However, it was a pity that he wasn't strong enough to determine Nie Tian's cultivation base. Heavenly Mandate Realm, Nie Tian said with a faint smile, knowing that Mu Yunshan was worried that he wasn't strong enough. Hearing Nie Tian's answer, Mu Yunshan couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, Heaven's warning. He didn't expect Nie Tian to be at the Heavenly Mandate Realm at such a young age. There were only a few in the entire virtual Luo realm who had such cultivation at such a young age. Without a doubt, Nye Tian was a super martial arts prodigy. But the next moment, Mu Yunshan's face darkened, and he said worriedly, "Little brother, your strength is indeed amazing, but there are many heavenly mandates Saint Masters in the Mu residence and the Yi residence, including many Saint Lord Tianyi. I'm afraid, don't worry. As long as I'm here, Miss Mu will be here," Nye Tian said without waiting for Mu Yunshan to finish. Mu Yunshan was stunned by Nye Tian's aura. He only reacted after a long while and nodded heavily. At this time, he could only choose to believe in Nye Tian. Nye Tian smiled and didn't say anything else. "Little brother." At this moment, Mu Yunshan suddenly spoke. After a brief hesitation, he said, "The Mu clan of the Qin city that you've asked about should be related to the Mu abode of the Nine Transformation City. Perhaps you can ask the patriarch of the Mu clan." Nye Tian took a glance at Mu Yunshan and smiled faintly. "Many thanks." He guessed that Mu Yunshan might be related to the Mu clan, but the latter didn't want to say it. After that, Nye Tian stayed at Mu Yun Mountain's house for the night. The next morning, he walked out of his room and saw that Mu Yu and Mu Chun were already waiting for him. "Benefactor, you're up." Mu Chun was very excited to see Nye Tian. "My name is Nye Tian. Just call me by my name." Nye Tian smiled faintly and rubbed Mu Chen's little head. And at this instant, he suddenly felt a strange aura sweep past, causing his entire body to tremble inexplicably. What was going on? The sudden change made Nye Tian frown, and his eyes narrowed. "Nye Tian, there's something strange about this little guy." At this moment, the fat cat's voice rang out. Nye Tian frowned and nodded. However, the fat cat didn't continue. It was probably because she couldn't tell what was so special about Mu Chun. "Mr. Nye Tian." At this moment, Mu Yunshan also came out and greeted Nye Tian warmly. Nye Tian smiled faintly as a response. Then, the other two ladies were also sent over, accompanied by 3 young men, 3 dowry attendants, and 4 guards. These were the people who were going to Nine Changes City next. Mu Yunshan warned Nitan and the rest about some things, then quietly waited for the people of the Mu clan to arrive. About half an hour later, 2 martial artists in black appeared. They were the people of the Mu clan. Nye Tian sized them up. They were both holy disciples in the 9th Heavenly Charm stage, so they weren't worth mentioning in his eyes. The 2 martial artists confirmed that Mu Yu and the other 2 ladies were here, then glanced at Nye Tian and the rest. They didn't wait any longer and directly left with everyone. "I want to go too." At this moment, Mu Chun suddenly shouted and ran over. "Mu Chun!" Mu Yunshan was startled by Mu Chen's sudden action. His eyes trembled and he exclaimed. Mu Yu and the rest didn't know how dangerous this trip would be. He had already lost a daughter, so he naturally didn't want to lose a son. However, Mu Chun was very persistent and didn't let go of Mu Yu's hand. "Let him follow." One of the guards of the Mu clan said coldly. He clearly didn't want to waste time. Mu Yunshan's face sank. Just when he wanted to go and pull Mu Chen back, he was stopped by Nye Tian. "Don't worry, I will take good care of him." Nye Tian smiled faintly with a calm expression. Mu Yunshan was stunned for a moment. At this moment, Mu Yu and the rest had already started to leave. Nye Tian slightly nodded and followed. Mu Yunshan looked at the figures of Nye Tian and the rest with an extremely ugly expression. He couldn't react for a long time. After Nye Tian and the rest left the Iron Mountain village, they headed for the Nine Transformation City. The Iron Mountain village wasn't far from the Nine Transformation City. Roughly an hour later, they arrived outside the Nine Transformation City. Even before entering the city, Nye Tian could already see countless colorful flags fluttering in the air above the city. The city was filled with the sound of gongs and drums. "Let's go," the 2 guards of the Mu abode said coldly as they brought Nye Tian and the rest into the city. A brief moment later, Nye Tian and the rest entered the Nine Transformation City. After entering the city, he finally realized how bustling the Nine Transformation City was. The wide streets were decorated with lanterns, and everyone had smiles on their faces, as if they were going to welcome some sort of victory. Nye Tian was speechless. He really had no idea that there was a need for such a huge commotion when getting married. Thereafter, Niet Tian and the rest were led by the Mu Abode's guards towards the Mu Abode. On the way, they encountered the dowry servants that the Mu Abode had brought over. He had to admit that Mu Yunshan had underestimated the Mu Abode. Along the way, Niet Tian had encountered hundreds of dowry servants. Thus, he could tell that the total number of dowry servants wouldn't be just a few hundred. There might even be thousands of them. Marrying a person, but having thousands of dowry servants? That was simply too ridiculous. It was as if only the misty of the Mu clan was human, and the dowry servants weren't. I'm not going. I don't want to be a dowry. At that moment, a scream rang out. Then, a silhouette dashed towards the crowd. Niet Tian's brow furrowed as he realized that one of the dowry attendants had run away, courting death. In the next moment, a deep voice resounded as a black-clothed cultivator appeared and threw a palm towards the fleeing woman. Instantly, a whistling sound resounded in the air along with a powerful pressure. That black-clothed cultivator wasn't trying to stop the woman, but to kill her. Chapter 38:23. Boom! The martial artist in black roared angrily. His aura burst out like a raging wave, causing the surrounding space to tremble. An enormous force appeared in the void and pushed the surrounding crowd back. He was a martial artist from the Mu family. In Nine Changes City, no one dared to oppose the Mu family. Especially today, it was the wedding day of the Mu family's eldest lady. It was of great significance to the Mu family and the entire Nine Changes City. It was the Mu family's honor for these attendants to be part of the Mu family's eldest lady's dowry. Yet they dared to escape. This was simply courting death. What angered him even more was that someone dared to stop him when he was about to kill someone. This was simply a provocation to the Mu family. He suddenly turned around and saw a silver-haired martial artist with an indifferent expression. This made him even angrier. His eyes trembled and surged with violent flames like a berserk beast. "Brat, how dare you attack me?" His eyes were gloomy and murderous as he spoke coldly. Every word he said was filled with murderous intent. As far as he was concerned, Niet Tian was already a corpse. In Nine Changes City, attacking a martial artist from a Mu family meant that one had no chance of survival. At this moment, everyone looked at Niet Tian with trembling eyes and horrified expressions. They began to discuss among themselves. Who is this brat? How dare he attack a martial artist from the Mu family? Yeah, today is the wedding day of the Mu family's eldest lady and the Yi family's third young master. If this brat dares to cause trouble here, isn't he provoking both the Mu family and the Yi family at the same time? An unknown brat dares to attack a martial artist from the Mu family. He's dead meat. As the crowd spoke, they looked at Niet Tian with strange gazes, as if they were looking at a corpse. Mu Yu and Mu Chun stared at Niet Tian in a daze. They were obviously scared out of their wits. They didn't expect that Niet Tian would attack at this moment. However, Niet Tian's expression was very calm and indifferent. He looked at the martial artist from a Mu family in front of him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He said, "She was only trying to escape. With your strength, you could have stopped her. Why did you kill her? Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to interfere in the Mu family's affairs?" That cultivator roared. Clearly, he did not care about Niet Tian at all. He took a step forward and his aura surged out crazily. Like a raging wave, it rumbled and pressed towards Niet Tian. Niet Tian stood where he was like an immovable mountain. Soft sword intent surged around his body. When that person's pressure approached him, it was easily dissolved. Huh. The martial artist was startled by the scene in front of him. His expression suddenly changed, and he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Clearly, he hadn't expected Niet Tian to be so strong. At this moment, no matter how stupid he was, he already knew that Niet Tian's strength was far above his. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be impulsive. Otherwise, you'll be the one to regret it. A faint smile hung at the corner of Niet Tian's mouth as he looked at the man. However, his eyes were filled with a hidden threat. This cultivator was only in the 9th stage of heavenly charm and couldn't fight back at all. If he wanted to, he could kill this person right away. However, he didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. After all, this person was from the Mu family. He He didn't want to have a conflict with the Mu family. Who are you? The cultivator's expression was extremely gloomy. It was obvious that he was feeling suppressed. I just don't like you killing people. Tian smiled. As long as you don't kill her, I'll pretend nothing happened. The man's eyes were gloomy as he stared at Tian. After a long silence, his expression slightly changed. Kid, this is your first time in Nine Changes City, right? So what if I am? Tian smiled and retorted. You still don't know who I am, right? The man's lips curled into a sinister smile. His eyes were filled with menace. You're a cultivator from the Mu family. The Mu family is one of the three major families in Nine Changes City. Today is the wedding day of the eldest daughter of the Mu family and the third young master of the Yi family. Tian obviously understood what the man meant. You! The man's eyes trembled violently as he said in a deep voice, Brat, since you know who I am, you still dare to attack me. Do you know that you are provoking the Mu clan and the entire Nine Changes City? Tian frowned, and his eyes were filled with coldness. You can say that if you want, I don't care. You don't care? The man's eyes trembled again after hearing Tian's words. His expression became extremely gloomy. Tian's answer was a blatant provocation to the Mu family. He was ignoring their authority in Nine Changes City. I just don't care. Tian smiled, the corner of his mouth curling up into a cold, disdainful smile. You're courting death. The man's eyes suddenly darkened and revealed a cold, murderous intent. He said, You have no idea what the Mu family means in Nine Changes City. Now, I'll give you a chance to live, as long as you kill the dowry attendant who escaped and kowed out to me as an apology. Then I will consider sparing your life. Sparing my life? Tian's lips curled into a smile, and he said, What will you do if I don't do as you say? I will kill you. The man's eyes darkened and revealed his murderous intent. He knew that his strength was far from being a match for Tian, but he was relying on the Mu family behind him. He did not believe that Tian would dare to do anything to him. After all, he was a member of the Mu family, and they were in Nine Changes City. No matter how arrogant Tian was, he would not dare to kill him in Nine Changes City. Kill me. Tian chuckled. His eyes flickered slightly as he said, You can try. Brat, this is Nine Changes City. Think carefully. The man smiled cold, and his eyes flickered with a threatening intent. Is that so? Tian sneered. Then, he took a step forward and stretched out his hand. Before the man could react, Tian's hand clamped down on the latter's neck. What are you doing? That person screamed in fright. His eyes trembled, and his eyeballs rolled back and forth as if they were about to be squeezed out of their sockets. He did not expect Tian to suddenly attack him. Are you threatening me? A trace of killing intent appeared at the corner of Tian's mouth. He sneered and said, I'm strangling you now. Do you still dare to be arrogant in front of me? Brat, you dare to touch a member of the Mu family? You're dead. The man's face turned pale, and a strange red color appeared on his face as he threatened Tian. I'll give you one more chance to speak. Don't make a mistake. Tian's eyes were extremely gloomy and cold. Chapter 38:24. Speak. Tian's gaze was cold as he stared at that person. I am wrong. That person's eyes trembled before he immediately said, Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I didn't do anything, and I didn't see anything. An arc rose on the corner of Tian's lips as he loosened his grip and smiled. A cultivator of the Mu clan is truly courageous. Thank you. Thank you for not killing me. That person felt his neck being loosened and the shock on his face slowly recovered. As he spoke, he subconsciously took a few steps back and did not dare to approach Tian. At this moment, Tian was akin to a demon to him. That's more like it. Tian smiled before he turned around and no longer bothered with that person. At this moment, everyone looked at Tian with a weird gaze. Their eyes were trembling as if they wanted to say something, but they couldn't. They never expected that Tian would be so ferocious to the point that he did not even place a cultivator of the Mu clan in his eyes. Humiliating a cultivator of the Mu clan in front of so many people, Tian had truly violated a great taboo in the Nine Changes City. However, Tian didn't seem to care. It was as if the Mu clan wasn't even worth mentioning in his eyes. Indeed, Nietion did not place the Mu clan in his eyes. After experiencing so much, a clan from a small city in the intermediate sacred world did not pose any threat to him. That person looked at Nietion with dense fear in his eyes. He no longer dared to offend Nietion. The storm had ended just like that, and no one had expected it to end. Thereafter, Nietion and the rest continued their journey towards the Mu abode. Not long after, they arrived outside the Mu abode. However, they did not enter the Mu abode but waited outside. Since Nietion couldn't enter the Mu abode, he couldn't help wearing an unhappy expression. Right at this moment, an azure-clothed old man walked out of the Mu abode. The old man's gaze swept across the crowd, and he said in a clear voice, "Everyone, please wait here. Don't be impatient. The eldest miss is dressing up and will come out soon." With that, the old man turned around and returned to his residence. At this moment, Nietion finally understood that the dowry maids weren't even qualified to enter the Mu abode. They could only wait outside and marry into the Yi clan with the Missy of the Mu clan. These servants practically gave their lives to the Mu clan, but they didn't even have the qualifications to enter the Mu abode. Just thinking about it, it was truly laughable. Nietion, on the other hand, didn't care. He would just wait outside. Roughly an hour later, there was finally a commotion in the Mu abode. First, 8 red-clothed martial artists appeared, neatly guarding outside the door. Nietion glanced at the 8 warriors. Each of them was at the 5th level of the heavenly mandate realm. Although this level of strength wasn't considered too strong, it was already an extremely terrifying expert in this small 9-changes city. The Mu clan sent out 8 warriors at the 5th level of the heavenly mandate realm to protect the bride, which showed how much importance they attached to this marriage. After a while, an extremely luxurious bridal sedan appeared. It was carried by 4 heavenly mandate 9th-level Saint Masters and slowly walked out of the Mu abode. When the bridal sedan was carried out, the surrounding crowd immediately became excited. The Missy of the Mu clan came out. What a grand scene! Who can't deny it? This is a marriage alliance between the Mu clan and the Yi clan. It's of great significance to the entire 9-changes city. A marriage alliance between 2 great clans. This is a major event for our 9-changes city. Everyone discussed and seemed very excited. They were even happier than when they were marrying off their own wives and daughters. 9-changes city had always been ruled by the 3 big families. Now that the Mu family and the Yi family were united by marriage, the current balance would definitely be broken. Hence, it was highly possible that 9-changes city would change completely because of this marriage. Next, thousands of martial artists walked out of the Mu abode and welcomed the dowry maids. They followed behind the bridal sedan. As for Nietion and the others, they became decorations and were ruthlessly thrown to the side. After a while, the entire bridal sedan began to march towards the Yi clan under the escort of countless people. "Big brother Nietion, my sister is going with them. What should we do?" Mu-chan followed Nietion and was very anxious when he saw Mu-yu being taken away. "Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to your sister." Nietion smiled faintly and signaled Mu-chan not to panic. Mu-yu was currently following the Mu clan's bridal sedan and was considered safe. Nietion didn't want to make a move at this time. He only needed to follow the bridal sedan and act according to the situation. If it really didn't work, he would just directly take Mu-yu away. And now, he was even more curious about how the marriage alliance between the Mu clan and the Yi clan would proceed. Nietion brought Mu-chun and followed behind the bridal sedan. "Young master, it's this brat." At this moment, a deep, murderous voice rang out, and a figure appeared in front of Nietion. "It's you?" When Nietion saw that person, he couldn't help but laugh. He was a little surprised. The person in front of him was the martial artist from a Mu clan who almost died in his hands. He didn't expect that this guy wouldn't give up and actually brought others to settle the score with Nietion. Standing behind him was a blue-haired young man. His facial features were handsome, and he gave off a heroic aura. However, his eyes were cold and grim as he stared at Nietion. "Brat, Was it you who attacked the martial artist from the Mu clan? The blue-haired young man said in a cold voice, his eyes surging with killing intent. It was me. Nietion didn't deny it and laughed. It's a big taboo to attack the martial artist from the Mu clan in Nine Changes City. The blue-haired young man's face was gloomy, and the killing intent in his eyes became more obvious. Do you want to kill me? Nietion smiled again. His calm reaction made him seem very provocative. What do you think? The blue-haired young man shouted in a low voice. His whole body released his aura and rushed into the void. Suddenly, a roar broke out in the space. Don't be impulsive, or you will regret it. Nietion raised his eyebrows and smiled faintly. This blue-haired young man's strength was not weak. He had already reached the 3rd tier of the heavenly mandate realm. It was not easy for him to have such strength at his age. He could be considered a rare martial arts genius. Unfortunately, such strength was not worth mentioning in front of Nietion. Is that so? The blue-haired young man growled as he sensed Nietion's disdain. Then, he prepared to attack. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a huge sword essence oppressing him, making him completely unable to release his strength. How is this possible? The blue-haired young man exclaimed in surprise. He looked at Nietion and suddenly trembled. Nietion smiled faintly. Just as he was about to say something, his expression suddenly changed as if he had discovered something. Chapter 38:25. Boom! In the void, a violent roar resounded. Between heaven and earth, there was a sea of fire. It was as if everyone had fallen into purgatory. Then, the scorching flames spread to the ground. Screams of agony rang out as many people started to burn. Seeing this, Nietion's face suddenly darkened, and a hint of violence appeared in his eyes. If the person in the void was here to kidnap the bride, then what he was doing was too cruel. Most of the people below were weak and could not withstand the impact of such terrifying flames. Boom! In the next moment, Nietion moved. The astral energy in his body gushed out, and the totem that covered the sky appeared again. It transformed into a giant net that enveloped everyone. Bastard, are you trying to run? Seeing this, the blue-haired young man thought that Nietion was trying to escape. With a low roar, a blue blade of ice appeared in his hand, and he stabbed at Nietion. Instantly, a bone-piercing coldness spread out. Everywhere it passed, time and space froze. Get lost. Nietion felt the coldness coming from behind him. He suddenly turned around, and with a low roar, he stabbed out with his sword. The sword will shattered the cold chi and landed on the ground, leaving behind a pool of blood. Under the impact of the sword's will, the blue-haired young man retreated hundreds of meters. After he stabilized himself, half of his body was a bloody mess and one of his arms was cut off. His face was pale and bloodless, but he could not feel any pain. There was only extreme fear in his eyes as he stared at Nietion, speechless. He obviously did not expect Nietion's strength to be so terrifying. With a casual swing of the sword, he crippled one of his arms. What shocked him even more was that Nietion was so young, about the same age as him. Who was this silver-haired young man? How could he be so strong? If you get in my way again, I will kill you. Nietion glared at the blue-haired young man coldly and left behind a cold sentence. Then his silhouette flashed, and he rushed into the sky. With his strength, killing the blue-haired young man was as easy as flipping his palm. However, he didn't kill him because he was concerned about his identity. He might be the young master of the Mu family. He still had to deal with the Mu family, so he didn't want their relationship to be so stiff. The blue-haired young man stared blankly at Nietion's back for a long time, and his expression trembled without end. Obviously, he was quite frightened. Get out of here! Nietion's silhouette flickered like a bolt of lightning. Astral energy gushed out from his body, unceasingly strengthening the power of the heaven-shrouding totem, resisting the impact of the flames in the air. He roared in anger, ordering everyone to retreat. The power of the stars was the origin of power. The shrouding sky totem had a strong resistance against any power. However, Nietion's development and understanding of the power of the stars were not enough. Therefore, it was not easy for him to block the power of the flames for a long time. What was even more troublesome was that the flames in the void seemed to be endless as they continued to descend. It was as if there was a sea of flames descending from the sky. Run, run. It was chaos below. The crowd was running in all directions, but there were too many people. It would take a lot of time to completely evacuate. Moreover, everyone was only concerned about their own lives. They didn't care about others at all. In this way, it directly caused chaos. Some of the weaker people were directly stepped on and then mercilessly trampled to death. Nietion's face was incomparably gloomy when he saw this scene. Everyone, listen up. Evacuate in an orderly manner for me. He roared violently from high up in the sky. Suddenly, his domineering voice fell into everyone's ears, causing everyone to tremble. Everyone looked up, and only then did they clearly see the situation high up in the sky. They immediately understood that if it wasn't for Nietion blocking the flames, more than half of the people present would have died in an instant. However, the crowd didn't listen to Nietion's warning at all. They continued to run on their own. Selfishness had always been the most essential side of human nature. At a moment of life and death, who would care about the lives of others? Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, Nietion roared, his eyes revealing a cold intent. Damn it! He really wanted to take back the totem and let these people live and die on their own. But he didn't do so. If he took back the totem, most of the people who died would still be weak. Nietion, be careful! Just then, Little Fat Cat suddenly cried out, appearing to be a little flustered. Nietion jerked his head up and saw a fireball descending towards him like a storm. "Eight Baron Blade!" He reacted instantly. The sword in the sky pierced through the void. The shadow of the sword howled like a dragon and met the firestorm head-on. Kaboom! In the next moment, the two extreme forces collided. The void roared, and suddenly, waves of violent force surged out like a raging wave, sweeping through the sky and earth. Under the impact of the violent force, Nietion's figure retreated for 1,000 meters before he managed to stabilize himself. He steadied himself and saw a figure in black standing high in the sky. A pair of red, murderous eyes were staring at him. That's the guy. Nietion's eyes darkened slightly. He looked at the figure in the distance with sharp, murderous intent in his eyes. He used his divine consciousness to probe and could not help but change his expression. This figure was not strong. He was only a saint master of the heavenly mandate realm. With such a strength, it should be impossible for him to release such a terrifying flame power. It's a matrix. While Nietion was in shock, Fat Cat's voice rang out and said in a deep voice, "A matrix?" Nietion was stunned for a moment. Then he realized what was going on. The murderous intent in his eyes became even more intense. It turned out that this guy had set up a big matrix in the sky in advance and directly activated it, creating a terrible impact of flames. Kill him. At this moment, an angry roar sounded in the void. Then dozens of warriors in black appeared. They were the people of the Mu clan. They moved together and rushed up like thunder toward that person. "You're courting death." The man's eyes narrowed slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he spat out 2 cold words. Then there was a sudden movement in the void. Countless fireballs appeared and connected in the air, turning into a sea of fire that shrouded the warriors of the Mu clan. "Watch out!" Seeing this, Nietion let out a low roar. His figure moved directly. The sword all over his body surged wildly and violently. He slashed out with his sword. The sword shadow was like a wild beast, directly hitting the flame net. Boom! The next moment, the sword shadow fell. Suddenly, the flame net sank as if it was about to collapse. Chapter 38:26. When Nietion saw the tragic scene under the flames, his eyes trembled slightly and his face was extremely gloomy. If he hadn't slashed out with his sword and slightly blocked the attack of the flame net, the dozens of Mu family warriors would have all died tragically. However, even so, only a few of the dozens of Mu family warriors were left alive. The eyes of the few lucky survivors trembled as they looked at the martial artists in the sky in horror. They were obviously frightened, and their figures involuntarily retreated. You guys go down and save them. Leave this guy to me. Nyetian took a step forward, turned around and glanced at the Mu family warriors and growled coldly. Yes, yes. Those people were stunned at first and then nodded frantically. They didn't know who Nyetian was, but they were shocked by the latter's aura and didn't dare to disobey. Tianling stood in the air and took a deep breath. Outside his body, the power of the stars surged, and he forcibly supported the sky-shrouding totem. Boom, boom, boom. At low altitude, the sea of flames was tumbling. Waves of flames were like thousands of demons dancing wildly, constantly attacking the sky-shrouding totem. Beads of sweat oozed from Yetian's forehead, and he was already showing signs of exhaustion. After all, he wasn't strong, and it was impossible for him to maintain the sky-shrouding totem for a long time. Your Excellency, this has nothing to do with you. It's better if you don't meddle in other people's business. At this moment, the person high up in the sky spoke in a deep voice that was filled with killing intent and indifference. What if I insist? Nyetian's eyes were cold and murderous as he responded coldly. I thought you were a smart person. Unfortunately, you're as stupid as them and deserve to die. The person's eyes darkened slightly and revealed a murderous intent. Then, the flame in the void increased and the surrounding temperature suddenly rose. The surrounding hundreds of thousands of meters were like a furnace. Nyetian couldn't help but frown when he felt the blazing aura in the void. Even with the strength of his martial body, he could feel the intense heat at this moment. His whole body seemed to be on fire. He had to admit that he had underestimated the other party. You're the one who's really stupid if you view life as worthless. Nyetian's eyes suddenly darkened, and he let out a low roar. His body moved in an instant, and the sword from his body gushed out crazily. A vague shadow of a sword appeared outside his body. It was extremely huge, tens of thousands of meters long, and it directly rushed towards the person in the sky. Since you're courting death, I'll grant your wish. High up in the sky, the black-clothed cultivator spoke in a cold voice. He could feel the intense, killing intent surging towards him, but he was not afraid at all. Boom! In the next instant, he blasted out with his palms as boundless flames gushed forth, causing the entire space to sink as though it was about to collapse. After that, a sea of flames appeared as tornadoes of flames gushed forth, resembling gigantic serpents coiling about, exuding a violent aura that could devour the heavens and earth. Nyetian was in midair. Even though he had activated the extreme fire, flaming heavenly battle armor, he couldn't withstand the attack of the sea of flames. Z. Under the violent rush of the flame intent, the armor on his body was actually being torn apart bit by bit. Following that, the flame aura surged into his body and forcefully tore apart his flesh. This flame, it's so strange. Nyetian forcefully endured the intense pain. His heart was filled with astonishment, but his eyes were still as sharp as ever. He didn't retreat at all and continued to rush towards the black-clothed cultivator. Nyetian, this is the Ghost Clan's 3 mysterious dragon flames. It's no small matter. At this moment, Fat Cat's voice rang out, reminding Nyetian. Yes. Nyetian nodded his head solemnly, but his silhouette continued to rush towards the sky. Brat, you dare to resist the 3 mysterious dragon flames? You're courting death. The black-clothed cultivator in the sky saw Nyetian rushing towards him. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he spoke in a cold voice. Die for me. Immediately after that, he shouted. Suddenly, the flames in the sky gathered together, forming a sea of flames. After that, a violent flame serpent rushed out, causing the air to emit a mournful wail as it rushed towards Nyetian. Nyetian's eyes darkened slightly as he felt the intense killing intent coming from above his head. Then, the 9 dragon veins in his body started to revolve crazily, and a deep dragon roar sounded in the sky. This was the first time he used the ancestral dragon Chi after merging with the ancestral dragon Shine. The violent and overbearing ancestral dragon, Chi, pushed his entire body's aura to an extreme level. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, the dragon Chi surged like thousands of waves, causing the sky to rumble continuously. Die! Nietion's eyes were like torches as he stared at the black-clothed cultivator. He let out a deep roar, and in an instant, an enormous dragon shadow appeared in the boundless dragon Chi. It directly rolled out, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Seeing this scene, the black-clothed cultivator was obviously shocked. He couldn't help but exclaim in shock. His eyes trembled slightly, and for the first time, he revealed a look of fear. He couldn't imagine that Nietion could actually release such a terrifying power. Kaboom! Boom, boom, boom. In the next instant, the flaming snake and the enormous dragon shadow collided with each other, causing a loud explosion in the sky. Then, a violent force spread out and wreaked havoc in the space. Boom, boom, boom. Chi, chi, chi. Then the two forces collided, devoured, and strangled each other. The space was in a state of chaos. Nietion and the black-clothed cultivator's figures were instantly engulfed by the violent force, and they couldn't be seen at all. The sea of flames and the totem collapsed at almost the same time, turning into a huge shockwave that swept across the ground. On the ground, a layer of soil that was tens of meters tall appeared, and some of the weaker cultivators were directly engulfed. After a long time, the violent force in the sky dissipated, and two figures appeared, standing there. One was like a sword, and the other was like a flame. These two figures were Nietion and the black-clothed cultivator. At this moment, Nietion was covered in blood, and his body was covered in horrifying wounds that were charred black. On the other hand, the black-clothed cultivator didn't suffer too many injuries. There were only some small wounds on his body that weren't fatal. However, his face was extremely gloomy, as if it was about to drip blood. And on the ground, when the soil dissipated, there was blood everywhere, and corpses were everywhere. You destroyed my spirit array. At this moment, the black-clothed cultivator looked at Nietion and suddenly roared violently. His eyes were deep and murderous, and he was extremely fierce, as if he was about to eat someone up. Obviously, he didn't expect that Nietion actually saw where the spirit array's eye was, and when he fought with him, Nietion directly destroyed the spirit array. In order to destroy the spirit array, Nietion didn't hesitate to take the risk and fight with the black-clothed cultivator. In the end, after being seriously injured, he successfully destroyed the spirit array. Chapter 38:27. You really are here to kidnap the bride. Nietion's eyes were extremely gloomy as he said in a cold voice, You killed so many people just to kidnap the bride. Don't you think that your methods are too cruel? Cruel? The man smiled cold and said, They're the real cruel ones who don't let me be with Mu Xuyan. Mu Xuyan? Nietion's eyes narrowed as he said, That's the name of the Mu family's eldest daughter, right? Are you sure that she wants to be with you? Of course. The man was very certain as he said, Xuan and I have already agreed that no matter what happens, we will be together. Nietion's expression changed slightly as he could feel the passion and desire in the man's eyes. He didn't expect that this cruel and bloodthirsty man would have such an infatuated side. Even if that's the case, is it right for you to kill so many people? Nietion's eyes were murderous as he said, Could it be that in your eyes, these people's lives are worthless? For Xuyan, I can disregard everything. The man's eyes were extremely cold as he said in a deep voice. Nietion frowned as his eyes trembled slightly. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Even though the person before him was brutal, the determination in his eyes was enough to move one's heart. It wasn't easy to go this far for the sake of the person he loved. However, this didn't mean that he could kill innocent people. Mu Xuyan, have you forgotten our oath? Are you really going to marry that trash from the Yi family? At this moment, the man in black suddenly roared. His violent voice was like thunder as it reverberated in the void, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. However, on the ground, The bridal sedan, surrounded by dozens of Mu family cultivators, did not react at all, as if it didn't hear anything at all. Mu Shuiyan, I know you're listening. Even if you don't say anything, I will tell you that I will never let you go in this lifetime. The man in black said in a deep voice. Every word he said was like thunder, filled with determination. Sovereign sword punishment. At that moment, a voice finally rang out from the sedan chair. It was clear and bright, but at the same time, it carried a hint of determination and even a hint of despair. The voice said, Go, we can't be together. Mu Shuiyan, what are you talking about? The eyes of the black-clothed cultivator, named Jun Jinxing, suddenly darkened as he growled like a wild beast. Mu Shuiyan's words were like a sharp blade stabbing into his heart, causing him to feel the most genuine despair. Leave, I don't want to see you ever again. Mu Shuiyan's voice rang out once more, resolute and cold. Why? 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 Jun Jinxing's eyes suddenly darkened. His eyes were filled with a sense of violence. He was like a ferocious beast that was about to go berserk. He roared furiously, angrily, and angrily. Nietian looked at Jun Jinxing, who was on the verge of losing his mind, and frowned deeply. He could feel the desperation in the latter's heart. Mu Shuiyan, I'll ask you again. Do you really want me to leave? Jun Jinxing roared like a wild beast. After a moment, he calmed down. His eyes trembled as he looked at the sedan chair on the ground coldly, and said word by word, Go. Mu Shuiyan was silent for a long time before she finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold and resolute. Jun Jinxing's eyes widened, as if his heart had just been stabbed by a sword. He then uttered a furious roar into the sky like a ferocious beast, as the fiery aura from his body became incredibly ferocious, causing the rift to be filled with ferocious waves. Nietian frowned. He felt a strange aura from Jun Jinxing. This aura actually made him feel threatened. Nietian, this guy is not simple. His blood contains the power of the human clan and the ghost clan. At that moment, Fat Cat reminded Nietian, double bloodline of the human clan and the ghost clan. When Nietian heard Fat Cat's words, he couldn't help but be shocked. Fat Cat nodded heavily, looking a little nervous. Boom! At that moment, Jun Jinxing's body suddenly trembled. Suddenly, an even more terrifying flame aura burst out. The entire heaven and earth trembled as if it was about to burn. Nietian's eyes darkened, and his figure retreated a few thousand meters. He was not in a good state at the moment. It was definitely not wise to fight Jun Jinxing head-on. All of you deserve to die. At that moment, Jun Jinxing roared. His eyes turned into a strange pure black color, as if he had turned into a demon. His body kept releasing violent flame aura, turning the heaven and earth around him into a sea of fire. Mu Shuiyan, I don't believe that you will leave me. Then, Jun Jinxing roared, and a sword of flame appeared in his hand. He moved like a falling meteor, rushing toward the bridal sedan on the ground. Protect the lady! Seeing this, the warriors of the Mu clan suddenly shouted. Dozens of warriors moved at the same time. Their aura burst out and linked together, rushing toward Jun Jinxing. Rumble! In the next moment, the most brutal collision occurred. The void space roared, and the heaven and earth exploded. The wild power surged wildly and spread in all directions. It was extremely terrifying. Bang, bang, bang. Then, with a series of muffled sounds, the warriors of the Mu clan flew backward, leaving bloody trails in the void space. And Jun Jinxing, burning like a flame, rushed down with great force. This guy is so strong. Nietian's eyes froze, and he was shocked. The dozens of warriors of the Mu clan were all high-level Heavenly Mandate Saint Masters. Among them, there were even many Ninth Heavenly Mandate Saint Masters. However, such a lineup was unable to fight back against Jun Jinxing, and they were killed in an instant. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Jun Jinxing was at the moment. In the void space, Jun Jinxing flew like a meteor and was about to reach the bridal sedan. Boom! But at that moment, the sky above suddenly trembled. Suddenly, a violent and boundless power descended and condensed into a giant hand in the air, pressing down. Boom! Jun Jinxing did not have time to react. His body was directly hit, and he was smashed into the ground. Boom! The ground shook violently, and a huge wave of dust rose up. The sudden scene made Nie Tion's expression change. He looked into the void space and saw a white-haired elder standing there like a mountain. Not far from the white-haired elder, a young man in white stood there. His eyes were cold as he stared at the ground. People of the Yi clan, you finally showed up. At that moment, Jun Jinxing's figure broke through the ground. His eyes were cold as he stared at the white-haired elder and the young man in white. Chapter 38:28. Yi Wuya. Jun Jinxing suddenly turned around and saw Yi Wuya. He called out his name in a low voice. His dark eyes were filled with an extremely cold and murderous light. Yi Wuya was the third young master of the Yi family, the man Mu Shuyan was about to marry. How could Jun Jinxing not be angry when he saw him? How could he not kill him? Jun Jinxing, we finally meet again. Yi Wuya, on the other hand, appeared to be very calm. His cold eyes surged with playfulness as he smiled sinisterly. After we parted last time, your strength did not increase. Nie Tion's lips twitched when he saw this. It seemed that Jun Jinxing and Yi Wuya had known each other for a long time, and they were very familiar with each other. It's enough to kill a despicable person like you. Jun Jinxing roared in a low voice. The fiery aura around his body surged, making him look like a wild beast, extremely violent. Is that so? Yi Wuya sneered. Then, he took a step forward and a terrifying aura rose from his body. It was like a raging wave that surged into the sky, surging in the void. Saint Tianyi! Jun Jinxing's eyes trembled as he cried out. He was obviously very shocked. He didn't expect that Yi Wuya had already become a powerful cultivator of Saint Tianyi. However, the next moment he calmed down. His lips twitched coldly as he said, "The power of the holy knight Chalcedony is indeed powerful." There was anger within the coldness, murderous intent within the anger, and resolute within the murderous intent. Yi Wuya looked at Jun Jinxing and couldn't help but sneer. He said, "This is all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to get the holy knight Chalcedony." Despicable person. Jun Jinxing's dark eyes suddenly narrowed. He roared and pointed at Yi Wuya, saying, "So it was you who did this." Boom. At that moment, the flames around his body exploded like never before. Waves of fire rushed into the air, setting the world around him ablaze. Jun Jinxing, the holy knight Chalcedony is a sacred item of the school. You stole it without permission. I will report this to the school. You're doing a righteous thing to get rid of a scourge for the school. Yi Wuya's face was cold, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. Son of AB *TCH. Jun Jinxing growled again. The flames on his body grew stronger, like a furious beast. Yi Wuya, this is all your scheme. At this moment, from the bridal sedan on the ground, a feminine voice rang out. Following which, a figure dressed in red with a phoenix crown and a red robe broke out of the sedan. She was as cold as a sharp blade, standing in the air. This figure had exquisite facial features and a beautiful appearance. She was the eldest daughter of the Mu family, Mu Shuyan. When Jun Jinxing saw Mu Shuyan, his eyes trembled, and he cried out in surprise. Mu Shuyan, don't you think it's too late for you to realize it now? However, Yi Wuya turned around and looked at Mu Shuyan. With a cold and gloomy face, he said, "You're going to be my woman soon. You'd better be the third young mistress of the Yi family." Dream on. Mu Shuyan growled. Her beautiful eyes were like snow as she trembled. She said, "When I was seriously ill, it was you who asked Jun Jinxing to steal the holy knight Chalcedony from the academy. When he got the holy knight Chalcedony, you used the excuse of treating my illness to cheat him of the holy knight Chalcedony. Then it was you who reported it to the academy, causing him to be expelled from the academy. He will never be able to step foot in the academy again. You're the one behind all of this. It's all your scheme." Mu Shuyan suddenly understood everything. Her beautiful eyes trembled, and her entire body was filled with anger. She was like a volcano that was about to erupt in the next moment. She, Yi Wuye, and Jun Jinxing were all disciples of Holy Rock Academy. Moreover, the three of them were under the same teacher. They were fellow disciples. Several months ago, Mu Shuyan suddenly contracted a strange illness. Black runes kept appearing on her body. Yi Wuye told Jun Jinxing that only the Holy Knight Chalcedony of Holy Rock Academy could save Mu Shuyan. In order to save Mu Shuyan, Jun Jinxing took a risk and stole the Holy Knight Chalcedony. He then gave it to Yi Wuye and asked him to save Mu Shuyan. Originally, Jun Jinxing had planned to surrender to the academy after Mu Shuyan got better. He would confess his wrongdoings and bear all the consequences. However, he did not expect that the people of the academy would find him so quickly and expel him from the academy. He would never be able to step foot in the academy again for the rest of his life. At that time, Jun Jinxing suspected that Yi Wuye was behind all of this. However, he had no evidence. It was only when he suddenly heard that Yi Wuye was going to marry Mu Shuyan that he began to understand everything. At this moment, Yi Wuye finally admitted everything in front of him. "You're right. Everything was planned by me. Even your illness was caused by me." Yi Wuye looked at the furious Mu Shuyan and smiled faintly. He said, "However, it's useless for you to understand all of this now. Yi Wuye, I treated you as a brother. How dare you set me up? I'm going to kill you." At this moment, Jun Jinxing let out a roar. All the fiery energy in his body burst out violently. He struck out with his palm. Instantly, rolling flames poured out like a torrent toward Yi Wuye. Boom! Yi Wuye stood coldly in the void. His eyes were cold. He casually struck out with his palm and easily blocked Jun Jinxing's furious palm. Yi Wuye sneered and said, "Jun Jinxing, do you think I'm still as strong as before? You have no idea how much the Holy Knight Chalcedony has improved me. Even if you were at your peak, you would not be a match for me, let alone when you're seriously injured." "Damn it!" Jun Jinxing roared again. The aura in his body surged wildly. However, at this moment, he was no longer a threat to Yi Wuye. Nie Tian watched from the side. He had already understood what had happened from the conversation between the three of them. He did not expect this guy, called Yi Wuye, to be so despicable. Jun Jinxing was very cruel, but at least he was upright. He was not like Yi Wuye, who would stab someone in the back. Why? Why do you want to set me up? Jun Jinxing's eyes were extremely gloomy as he roared violently. Why? Yi Wuye laughed and said, "Because you are too outstanding. Why do you always surpass me? Why do I always get ignored when you're around? In the eyes of the master, you're the proudest disciple. In the eyes of your peers, you're the most talented warrior. In fact, in Mu Shuyan's eyes, you're the best senior brother. What about me? I'm the third young master of the Yi family. Why do I always have to be suppressed by a guy who's neither human nor ghost? I can't accept this." Chapter 38-29. Yi Wuye's eyes were extremely cold. He stared at Jun Jinxing like a ferocious beast, as if he wanted to eat Jun Jinxing alive. Another jealous fellow. Nie Tian looked at Yi Wuye and could not help but frown with a gloomy expression. Yi Wuye became like this because he was jealous of Jun Jinxing. Such a reason seemed ridiculous, but it was very real. It was not uncommon for someone to be jealous. However, it was rare to see someone like Yi Wuye who plotted after being jealous. Every warrior's talent was different. As the saying goes, there will always be someone better than you. Even among the most talented warriors, there are people more talented than them. Talent was always relative. Only strength was absolute. In the face of absolute strength, no matter how talented one was, it was useless. The height a warrior could reach had a lot to do with talent, but mentality and perseverance were equally important. Those with a bad mentality and weak perseverance, no matter how talented they were, would not be able to reach the peak of martial arts. For someone like Yi Wuye, even if he was more talented than Jun Jinxing, he would only be a schemer. He would never become a true powerhouse. There were many ways to surpass someone, but Yi Wuye chose the most despicable and stupid way. "So you set me up because of jealousy." Jun Jinxing looked at the crazed Yi Wuye and couldn't help but sneer. I didn't expect you to value these things. What I care about is Mu Shuiyan. Yi Wuye's eyes darkened, and he growled. You can steal all the limelight, but you shouldn't steal Mu Shuiyan. She is mine. Yours? Jun Jianxing sneered again and said arrogantly, Shuiyan is a person, a living person. She made her own choice, and she chose me. Is that so? Yi Wuye's eyes trembled. He suddenly turned around to look at Yi Wuye and said coldly, word by word, Mu Shuiyan, tell him now who you choose. Mu Shuiyan's beautiful eyes trembled. She glanced at Jun Jianxing and seemed a little panicked. She trembled and couldn't speak. Shuiyan, say it. Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled as he looked at Mu Shuiyan with a burning gaze. All of you, don't force me. Mu Shuiyan's beautiful eyes trembled. Suddenly, she seemed to have gone mad as she screamed. Shuiyan, what's wrong? Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled, not knowing what was going on. He said, have you forgotten our oath? Have you forgotten that we used to be together? Oath. Yi Wuye sneered and said, Jun Jianxing, you're so naive. Do you think I'm the only one who's a liar? Do you think that Mu Shuiyan wouldn't lie to you? Lie to me? Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled violently. He shook his head like a madman and said, impossible, absolutely impossible. Shuiyan would never lie to me. Yi Wuye sneered again. He stared at Mu Shuiyan with a pair of murderous eyes and said in a deep voice, Mu Shuiyan, I want you to say it now. Between me and Jun Jianxing, who will you choose? Mu Shuiyan's beautiful eyes trembled. She wanted to say something, but she didn't dare to. It was obvious that she was afraid of something. She's being threatened. Nie Tian's heart sank when he saw this. How could he not see that Mu Shuiyan was being threatened by Yi Wuye at the moment? Yi Wuye must have a trump card that Mu Shuiyan had no choice but to obey. Tell me your choice. Yi Wuye's eyes suddenly darkened. He looked even colder and gloomier than before. I choose. Mu Shuiyan's eyes trembled violently. Her eyes were like ice, but they revealed a helpless despair. She said in a trembling voice, I choose you. Shuiyan, you. Hearing Mu Shuiyan's words, Jun Jianxing felt as if his heart had been stabbed by a knife. He looked at Mu Shuiyan in shock and was speechless. Who am I? Tell me my name. Yi Wuye's lips curled into a smile. His face was ferocious, and he laughed crazily. I choose you. You, Yi Wuye. Mu Shuiyan's beautiful eyes trembled. She roared as if she had gone mad. Good, very good. Yi Wuye laughed wildly and was proud of himself. Shuiyan, why are you doing this? You. Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled. Before he could finish his sentence, his heart was overwhelmed by anger. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't understand why the person who had made a solemn vow to him had become so heartless, so cold, and so unfamiliar. The look of despair in his eyes made Jun Jianxing instantly weak, like a withered leaf in the middle of a violent storm. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He could clearly feel the despair in Jun Jianxing's heart. It was a bone-piercing pain. It was as if his entire heart had been emptied in an instant. Mu Shuiyan's eyes were also filled with despair. However, it wasn't the despair of being torn apart. Instead, it was a deep sense of powerlessness, helplessness, and hopelessness. Jun Jianxing, do you want to know why? At that moment, Yi Wuye spoke again. His eyes were like those of a venomous wolf, staring cold at Jun Jianxing. He sneered and said, because I'm stronger than you now. Mu Shuiyan has never truly loved you. She only loves your talent and you. It's just my strength. But now, I'm stronger and more talented than you, so she chose me and not you. Ha ha ha. As he finished speaking, Yi Wuye started laughing wildly, and he seemed to be mad and ruthless. Impossible. Jun Jianxing roared. It can't be like this, it can't be like this. I don't believe it, I don't believe it. You don't believe me? Yi Wuye smiled cold. He then looked at Mu Shuiyan again and said, Mu Shuiyan, tell him, did you really love him? Yi Wuye, you've already gotten what you want. What else do you want? Mu Shuiyan's beautiful eyes darkened as she spoke in a cold tone. You don't want to tell me? Yi Wuye's lips twitched coldly. Murderous intent surged in his eyes as he said, if you don't tell me, I'll kill him. Don't you dare. Mu Shuyan's eyes trembled, and she shouted in a low voice, "We agreed that you can't kill him." Agreement? Yi Wuye laughed as if he had heard a joke. He then moved and turned into a ray of light. He released a sharp, murderous intent in the air and attacked Jun Jinxing. No! Mu Shuyan's eyes trembled as she screamed in fear at the shocking scene. She didn't expect Yi Wuye to go against the agreement and kill Jun Jinxing. In fact, when Yi Wuye confessed everything, he had already decided to kill Jun Jinxing. Chapter 38:30. What he saw caused Nie Tian's face to drop as he inwardly exclaimed, He did not make a move because he had already sensed that someone in the sky had locked onto him. The person who had locked onto him was the elder from the Yi clan who had appeared together with Yi Wuye. The elder had already reached the heavenly righteous realm. If Nie Tian were to make a move recklessly, the elder from the Yi clan would definitely make a move. By then, the situation would only worsen. Nie Tian did not expect Jun Jinxing to suffer such a huge psychological blow. Even in the face of death, Jun Jinxing did not react at all. Jun Jinxing. The scene in the sky caused Mu Shuyan's expression to change. She let out a cry of shock, and her voice became sharp and ear-piercing. That sharp blade had pierced Jun Jinxing's chest, but it had pierced Mu Shuyan's heart. That kind of heart-wrenching pain was completely unbearable, as if her soul had been torn apart in an instant. At this moment, the few martial artists who were watching from afar were also shocked by the scene in front of them. They were completely speechless. Jun Jinxing's body trembled as if he was bathed in blood. His mouth was wide open, but no words came out. He could not even make a sound. Jun Jinxing, do you know why Mu Shuyan would say something like that? Yi Wuye took a step forward and stood in front of Jun Jinxing. He asked in a low voice, his face extremely gloomy. Jun Jinxing's lips trembled, but he couldn't bring himself to finish his sentence. Because she is already... Yi Wuye smiled sinisterly. The fierceness in his eyes sent chills down everyone's spine. He said in a low voice, "Pregnant with your child." Yi Wuye's words were like sharp blades that stabbed into Jun Jinxing's heart. His lifeless eyes trembled, and the despair on his face was instantly replaced by anger. At this moment, he finally understood everything. Why would Mu Shuyan marry Yi Wuye? Why would Mu Shuyan choose Yi Wuye? Why would Mu Shuyan say something like that? Everything Mu Shuyan had done was to protect the child in her womb. Jun Jinxing, I'm telling you all this to make your death more painful. Yi Wuye said in a deep voice. I want you to know the truth, but you can only watch helplessly and be powerless to change it. But don't worry, I won't kill Mu Shuyan, nor will I kill that child. I'll raise him up and let him call me father. I'll let him know that Jun Jinxing is a complete scum. Ha ha ha. Once again, Yi Wuye let out hysterical laughter. It was as if he had gone mad, and there was a perverted sense of satisfaction in his ferocious laughter. Yi Wuye, you bastard. Jun Jinxing's eyes flickered as he let out a roar. His dark eyes turned red in an instant as his aura burst out like a tsunami, causing the rift to tremble. The unexpected change made Yi Wuye's expression change. He let out a cry of surprise and retreated 1,000 meters away. He looked at Jun Jinxing with a puzzled expression. His face was full of confusion. He did not expect Jun Jinxing to be able to exert such terrifying power when he was on the brink of death. What kind of power is this? On the other side of the rift, Nie Tian's expression changed as he exclaimed inwardly. He had heard the conversation between Yi Wuye and Jun Jinxing very clearly. The power in his body was already churning and surging. He seemed to see his past self in Jun Jinxing. Back then, when he was in the territory, he was forced to leave Mo Rushi and her son because of 9 gods Hua. When he was about to enter the sacred world, he was forced to leave Mo Rushi and her son again. The scene in front of him was so similar to the situation he had faced in the past. Moreover, the enemies that Jun Jinxing faced were even more brutal, ruthless than 9 gods Hua and the others. Jun Jinxing was already on the brink of death. However, when he heard that Mu Shuyan was pregnant, the power that erupted from him was shockingly strong. The potential that a father could unleash for his child was unimaginable. Nietion's eyes trembled slightly. At this moment, he could feel a power slowly awakening in Jun Jinxing's body. This power was even repairing Jun Jinxing's damaged body. After all, Jun Jinxing had first fought with Nietion. Then he was slapped down by the powerful elder of the Yi family. Just now, he had even suffered a fatal blow from Yi Wuye. Moreover, it was a fatal wound that pierced through his heart. It was unbelievable that he still had the strength to fight back at this moment. His bloodline is mutating. At this moment, Fat Cat's voice was heard. She seemed very surprised, as if she had seen something incredible. Bloodline mutating? Nietion's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but be stunned. He did not expect that Jun Jinxing's body would undergo such a strange change. Generally speaking, bloodline mutations usually occurred when a martial artist was born, and occasionally it would occur during childhood. As the warrior grew older, the bloodline would gradually stabilize, and the chances of mutation would become very small. Who would have thought that Jun Jinxing, who was already in the heavenly mandate ninth realm, could undergo bloodline mutation? When a person is in the ultimate state, the potential that can be unleashed is simply unlimited. Fat Cat's eyes trembled, and she could not help but exclaim. Jun Jinxing was able to break through the limits of the martial body and bloodline under extreme desperation, awakening, and anger, causing his bloodline to mutate. It was really amazing. His bloodline mutation is so scary. Nietion looked at Jun Jinxing, and his eyes trembled. He was very shocked. He felt that Jun Jinxing's meridians and bones were actually being reconstructed under the impact of a strange power. This bloodline power is too strong. This guy's meridians and bones are being reconstructed. Fat Cat also noticed the abnormality at this time. Her eyes trembled, and she said in surprise. Even he had never seen such a terrifying bloodline mutation before. How is this possible? Yi Wuye looked at Jun Jinxing and obviously felt that something was wrong. His eyes trembled, and he could not help but scream. He had never expected such a scene in front of him. Chapter 38-31. Boom! Yi Wuye slammed his palm forward. An enormous amount of power roared, and the shadow of his palm pressed towards Jun Jinxing like a mountain. He had already sensed the shocking changes in Jun Jinxing's body. He wanted to kill Jun Jinxing before his bloodline mutation was complete. Watch out! Mu Xian was stunned by the changes in Jun Jinxing's body. After a long while, she finally reacted. Her face turned pale, and she screamed. Boom! At the moment of life and death, Jun Jinxing's bloodshot eyes trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with the intent to kill. Immediately after, the violent flames within his body gushed out in a frenzy. Like thousands of demons dancing in the air, the flames raged in the air and destroyed the incoming palm. How was this possible? Yi Wuye was hit by the enormous force, and he was knocked back thousands of meters. After he stabilized himself, he couldn't help but scream out in shock. He never dreamed that Jun Jinxing would be able to explode with such terrifying power in an instant. Yi Wuye die. At that moment, Jun Jinxing roared. His eyes were bloodshot, and his body was surrounded by flames and murderous intent. His entire person was like a ferocious beast. He took a step forward, and the air trembled. Then, a terrifying power of flames appeared and rolled violently. In the air, a giant flaming snake was formed. It was extremely ferocious, and it charged toward Yi Wuye. Yi Wuye felt a terrifying, strangling force appear, causing his expression to change in shock, and even his mind to tremble. At that moment, he felt a bone-chilling, murderous intent. The coldness was enough to make one feel hopeless. Boom! However, in the next moment, a violent palm fell from the void and smashed the giant flame snake into pieces as if it was nothing more than a dead branch. Jun Jinxing was in the air. His body suddenly sank, and he was sent flying thousands of meters away. After he stabilized his figure, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The strange and terrifying power of the bloodline in his body became violent once again, causing a bloody aura to surge out from his body. Shameless. Yet Tion saw this and shouted in his heart. He stared coldly at the elder of the Yi clan in the sky. It was the elder of the Yi clan who had once again severely injured Jun Jinxing. The elder of the Yi family was a saint of the 9th tier of heavenly righteousness, while Jun Jinxing was only a saint master of the 9th tier of heavenly mandate realm. The gap between the two was like heaven and earth. Even though Jun Jinxing's bloodline had mutated, he still couldn't contend against this elder Yi. The old man from the Yi family glanced coldly at Nyek Tian, cold disdain in his eyes. He had been paying attention to Nyek Tian for a long time, but he hadn't made a move yet. If Nyek Tian made any strange moves, he wouldn't mind killing the former. Damn it! Jun Jinxing let out a low roar. The redness in his eyes did not diminish at all. Instead, it became even more terrifying. The mutated power of the bloodline in his body did not show any signs of stopping. Instead, it became even more terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of strange, awakening power surged crazily in his body like wild beasts, attacking his martial body. At the same time that his aura skyrocketed, it also became more and more unstable. Nyek Tian frowned when he sensed that Jun Jinxing's aura was very unstable. It was even a little chaotic. Oh no! At this time, the fat cat's voice was heard. His bloodline has been attacked. It's becoming stronger and stronger. It's about to go out of control. Go out of control? Nyek Tian's eyes narrowed, and he was shocked. If the power of the bloodline mutation doesn't stop, he'll go berserk and explode. The fat cat didn't explain too much and said directly, "This." Nyek Tian's eyebrows furrowed in astonishment. He didn't expect the situation to be this bad. "Little bastard, I will kill you." At this time, the elder of the Yi clan roared. His body shook, and a surge of power surged out, causing the surrounding void to tremble. "Third Grandpa, please don't interfere. I want to kill this human ghost bastard with my own hands." Yi Wei stepped forward and said coldly. The elder of the Yi clan frowned. He hesitated for a moment, but he still nodded. Yi Wei's eyes were cold and murderous. He stared at Jun Jinxing. He didn't believe that Jun Jinxing could still fight with him after being hit by his third grandpa. "Come and kill me." At this time, Jun Jinxing roared. His aura skyrocketed crazily. Waves of fiery power surged like raging waves, causing the void to rumble. "You're courting death," Yi Wei roared in a low voice. His figure moved like the wind and lightning. His fierce aura filled the void as if he could kill everything. 3 black dragon flames. Ghost dragon appears. At this moment, Jun Jinxing's blood-red eyes were filled with a cold, killing intent. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and the dragon flames on his body reached an extreme level in an instant. In the sea of fire that filled the sky, a giant flaming dragon broke through the air. The pressure caused the heavens and earth to sink, and even the void seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The void seemed to collapse. "Watch out!" The old man from the Yi clan felt the burning energy that assaulted his face, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. He instantly let out a loud roar, and then he reacted in an instant. He slapped out with his palm, and a continuous force surged towards Yi Wei like an endless river. It transformed into a shield that enveloped the latter. Roar! In the next moment, the Inferno dragon rolled out, roaring like thunder. Instantly, the power of dragon flames was unleashed. The scorching tongues of fire were like tens of thousands of giant snakes, dancing wildly as if they wanted to devour and incinerate everything in their path. Bang! Then the most extreme collision occurred. The giant fiery dragon crashed down, and the muffled sound of an explosion resounded in the sky. Then, waves of wild power spread out like raging waves, wreaking havoc in the void. The heaven and earth were in chaos. The power of the flames roared like wild beasts, burning the sky. Nyek Tian's eyes suddenly darkened. The power in his body surged, and the soul of the sky was opened. A surge of sword momentum rushed into the sky. Then, the void calmed down a little. Jun Jianxing and Yi Wuye's figures appeared, like two bodies dripping with blood. Yi Wuye trembled slightly. His blood-soaked eyes were filled with shock. The fear in his heart was self-evident. He could not imagine that Jun Jianxing could explode with such terrifying power when he was seriously injured. If it weren't for the elder of the Yi clan who protected him with the shield, he would have died a long time ago. Jun Jianxing was also covered in blood. His eyes were filled with ferocity, like that of a wild beast. Jun Jianxing. Mu Shuiyan saw this from afar. Her eyes were shaking, and she was sobbing uncontrollably. Son of a B asterisk TCH die. At that moment, the elder of the Yi clan roared again and moved. A violent aura surged in the void, and an enormous amount of power exploded in an instant, aiming to kill Jun Jianxing. Jun Jianxing was like a wild beast, but he had lost the ability to fight back. Only his eyes were filled with anger and blood. He had no intention of surrendering. Die! In the next second, the elder of the Yi clan slammed his palm down. Jun Jianxing was about to die. Chapter 38-32. The elder of the Yi clan suddenly felt the pressure from the sword matrix. He couldn't help but frown. His expression suddenly changed, and he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Boom! The next moment, the giant palm fell and bombarded on the sword matrix. The void space trembled, and then the giant palm collapsed and turned into a violent force. Old man, with your status, how shameless you are to bully a junior like this. Then, a deep and playful voice sounded. It was cold and sarcastic. Are all the people of the Yi clan so shameless? How is this possible? The elder of the Yi clan saw the figure in front of him clearly. It turned out to be Nie Tian. His expression suddenly changed. He ignored the latter's sarcasm and screamed in horror. It was true that he had been paying attention to Nie Tian, but he didn't see him as a real threat at all. Nie Tian's strength was a bit strange, but after all, he was only in the 5th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm. It was impossible for him to overturn the situation. Therefore, he had never expected that Nie Tian would be able to block his palm strike. Moreover, Nie Tian blocked it without any fancy moves. He didn't rely on any tricks at all. The elder of the Yi clan could sense that the sword matrix released by Nie Tian came from him, not some kind of matrix scroll. And a matrix scroll couldn't be activated in an instant. Who on earth was Nie Tian? I'm done playing with you. Goodbye. Nie Tian's mouth twitched into a cold smile. Then, wings of Star Soul appeared on his back. He moved and came to Jun Jianxing's side, taking the ladder with him. Then, like a bolt of lightning, he swept past Mu Shuiyan and took her with him. Then, the wings on his back shook, and he instantly flew thousands of meters away. Third Grandpa! Yi Wuye suddenly reacted. His expression suddenly changed, and he screamed. Run? Don't even think about it. The elder of the Yi clan was stunned for a few seconds before he reacted. He spoke cold. His figure instantly moved and stepped into the air. His speed was extremely fast, as if he was tearing the void space apart. Although Nie Tian's speed was fast, he seemed very slow in front of the elder of the Yi clan. This old man is indeed troublesome. Nie Tian's eyes glistened slightly, but he did not panic. Instead, he let out a smile and lashed out with his palm. Instantly, a powerful force was unleashed toward the old man from the Yi clan. Little bastard, do you really think you can block my... The Yi clan elder's eyes darkened. Before he could finish laughing, his body stiffened. Bang! In the next moment, before he could even react, he was hit by a violent force. His figure was sent flying, and he was pushed back thousands of meters before he managed to stabilize himself. Third Grandpa! Yi Wuye was stunned by the scene before him, and he cried out in shock. The old man from the Yi clan steadied himself. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, as if he wanted to devour someone. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He was actually injured. He didn't expect Nie Tian to be able to unleash such terrifying power with just one palm strike. Nie Tian was only at the 5th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm. How could he be so terrifying? The Yi clan elder's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Looking at the place where Nie Tian disappeared, he growled coldly. What kind of monster is this kid? Third Grandpa, are you okay? At this time, Yuya came to the side of the Yi clan and asked nervously, Don't worry, they will come back by themselves. The Yi clan elder smiled coldly. His eyes were filled with coldness. If Mu Shuyan didn't want the child in her belly to die, she had to come back. Yes, Yi Wuye, of course, understood what the Yi clan elder meant. He nodded heavily, and his nervous expression eased a lot. They had predicted that Jun Jianxing would come to kidnap the bride, but they didn't expect the unexpected appearance of Nie Tian. A grand farce ended just like that. The Yi clan elder and Yi Wuye left directly. Someone else would come to clean up the scene later. The Yi clan elder's only thought was that he had to find out the identity of Nie Tian. He wouldn't allow a variable that was out of his control to exist. At the same time, in the void space outside Nine Changes City, Nie Tian's figure was like a bolt of lightning, running wildly. He had to escape from Nine Changes City as soon as possible. The farther, the safer. Nie Tian, it's almost time. Those people can't catch up with us, the fat cat said in a deep voice after about half an hour. Yes. Nie Tian slowed down and sensed the aura around him. He was relieved to make sure that no one was following him. He looked at the ground and sensed for a while. He landed in a remote valley. Thank you, young master. Mu Shuyan was still in shock. Her beautiful eyes trembled slightly. She thanked Nie Tian with a strange expression. She didn't know how Nie Tian had blocked the Yi clan patriarch's palm strike, or how he had forced the Yi clan patriarch back. Nie Tian blocked the Yi clan elder's attack using the sky sword formation, and when he forced the Yi clan elder back, he used the earth-extinguishing star soul. In order to deal with the Yi clan elder, Nie Tian used both of his trump cards. Jun Jianxing. Mu Shuyan looked at Jun Jianxing, her eyes trembling slightly. She was panicking. At this moment, Jun Jianxing was completely unconscious and his aura was unstable. He was in danger. Let me take a look. Nie Tian frowned and sensed Jun Jianxing's aura. His face became very gloomy. Young master, is he all right? Mu Shuyan frowned and looked at Nie Tian nervously. Nie Tian's face was gloomy and he didn't say anything. Nie Tian, with his bloodline mutated, he forcefully used the power of his bloodline, causing him to lose control of his bloodline. This caused his meridians to be in a mess and his martial body to suffer a huge impact. Now his aura is in a mess and he has lost his life force. He can no longer live. At this time, the fat cat's voice sounded. Said. Nie Tian's frown deepened and his eyes trembled slightly. It was obvious that he was thinking about something. Although the Jun Jianxing before him was cruel and ruthless, his love for Mu Shuyan was real. And when he found out that his child was in danger, he even broke through the limits of his martial body, causing his bloodline to mutate. Nie Tian was deeply moved by this, and he even empathized with him. Once upon a time, Nie Tian also faced the same predicament and fought like a wild beast. In Jun Jianxing's body, Nie Tian seemed to see himself in the past. Young master, I beg you, save him, save him. At this time, Mu Shuyan seemed to have seen something in Nie Tian's eyes. She suddenly knelt down, crying and begging. Get up. Nie Tian's face was cold and solemn. Chapter 38-33. Earth Extermination, Star Sovereign. Nie Tian was thinking of a way to save Jun Jianxing, which was to let him fuse with the Earth Extermination Star Soul and become the Earth Extermination Star Sovereign. Nie Tian, the Earth Extermination Star Soul, is not a trivial matter. You don't understand the person in front of you at all. Have you really thought it through? Fat Cat said after a moment of silence. Forbidden Star Souls were all very powerful, which was why they were called forbidden. The Earth Extermination Star Soul was one of the mysterious yellow star souls. Among all the forbidden star souls, it should be second only to the Lonely Sky Star Soul and the dual Absolute Star Souls. Although the forbidden star souls were not strictly divided into strong and weak, Nie Tian felt that the Lonely Sky Star Soul should be the strongest. The forbidden star souls below it should be weaker. However, he was not sure. He only had this guess in his heart. He could not control the Star Lords chosen by the former Starry Sky Saint Lord, but he could choose the Star Lords with the Star Souls in their hands. The previous few Star Lords, Tang 13, Azure Dragon Star Lord, Boundless Ghost, were all personally chosen by him. They were people he trusted a lot. And the Human Killer Star Lord, Xian Qie, was a warrior of the underworld dragon race with a powerful underworld dragon body. Although he did not know much about Xian Qie, the mysterious person should know Old Ancestor Wu Ming and Xian Qie very well. Old Ancestor Wu Ming's character was not bad, and Xian Qie was not a cruel and bloodthirsty person. Therefore, Nie Tian was very cautious when choosing the previous few Star Lords. But now, he wanted to give the Earth Extermination Star Soul to Jun Jinxing, whom he had only met once. In particular, when Jun Jinxing kidnapped the bride, he did not hesitate to use a powerful flame array to burn countless innocent people. This method was too cruel. Even if he wanted to save his sweetheart, he could not deny that he killed many innocent people. Moreover, if it was not for Nie Tian, there would have been at least tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people dead. Giving such a powerful Earth Extermination astral soul to such a cruel person was simply a huge gamble. If the Monarch Sword Executioner who had the Earth Extermination astral soul recovered and his strength increased, how could Nie Tian not feel guilty in his heart? Fat Cat was very far-sighted and comprehensive. He did not want Nie Tian to do something that he would regret. I made up my mind. It's him. Nie Tian's eyes were cold and solemn, and his deep voice was filled with determination as he nodded slightly. He believed that a person who was willing to undergo a bloodline mutation for the sake of the person he loved and his child couldn't be too bad. Your name is Mu Shuyan, right? Nie Tian looked at Mu Shuyan, who was standing beside him, and asked calmly. Mu Shuyan hurriedly nodded and said, Young Lord, please save him. I will save him, but there are some things I need to make clear to you. Nie Tian's face darkened as he said, he is currently in a coma. He needs you to help him make some decisions. Mu Shuyan nodded repeatedly. She could see the coldness in Nie Tian's eyes. She did not know how Nie Tian was going to save Jun Jinxing, but she had already made up her mind. No matter what price she had to pay, she wanted Jun Jinxing to live. Nie Tian looked at Mu Shuyan and could feel the determination in her eyes. He then briefly explained the matter of astral souls and astral sovereigns. Of course, he could not tell Mu Shuyan the true secret of the forbidden astral souls. He only wanted Mu Shuyan to understand that after Jun Jinxing fused with the forbidden astral souls, he would have another identity and another responsibility. Sure. After listening to Nie Tian, Mu Shuyan immediately nodded and said, Jun Jinxing can become your astral sovereign. Nie Tian faintly smiled. Mu Shuyan clearly misunderstood his meaning. She thought that after Jun Jinxing fused with the astral souls, he would become his subordinate. But this was nothing. There was no absolute hierarchy between the astral saint lord and astral sovereign, but there was a primary and secondary relationship. Mu Shuyan's understanding was a little off, but it was not completely wrong. I don't care what kind of person he was in the past, but after he became an astral sovereign, he must not kill the innocent. Nie Tian's gaze darkened. If he can't even protect this one rule, I will personally kill him. No, he is not a bloodthirsty person. He killed to save me. Mu Shuyan hurriedly waved her hands to explain. She was clearly flustered. At this moment, she felt a kind of fear towards Nie Tian. She was extremely afraid. She had never seen a martial artist as terrifying as Nie Tian. In her mind, the scene of Nie Tian blocking the palm strike of the Yi clan elder and forcing him to retreat was still clearly imprinted. She could not imagine how Nie Tian, with his age and strength, could contend against the Yi clan elder. Okay, Nie Tian nodded slightly. He could see that Mu Shuyan was a little flustered. To avoid unnecessary trouble, and to not be disturbed while fusing with the astral souls, he let her enter the 9 extremities. Rui Qinyu was also in the 9 extremities. She could comfort Mu Shuyan. After Mu Shuyan entered the 9 extremities, Nie Tian let out a long breath of turbid air and tried to relax. Actually, he was not very determined to give the earth extinguishing astral soul to Jun Jinxing. He just felt that a person like Jun Jinxing, who was made of flesh and blood, with integrity and responsibility, deserved a second chance. What he was interested in was not Jun Jianqing's talent, but his character. Next, Nie Tian began to help Jun Jianqing fuse the earth-extinguishing astral soul. He already had the experience of fusing astral souls before, so he was already familiar with it. However, Jun Jianqing was stronger than the previous astral sovereigns. Moreover, he was in a special state of bloodline mutation, so the fusion of astral souls was a little slow. After half a day, Nie Tian finally let out a long breath of turbid air. His tense spirit state relaxed. He spent half a day before he finally helped Jun Jianqing fuse the earth-extinguishing astral soul. At this moment, his face was somewhat pale, and his forehead was dripping with cold sweat. He was too focused just now. Now that he suddenly relaxed, he instantly felt exhausted. After Jun Jianqing fused with the earth-extinguishing astral soul, he was still in a coma. However, his breathing had stabilized, and his disordered meridians had recovered. The aura of his martial body had also become stronger. He should be able to completely recover soon. Nie Tian took a few deep breaths, and his complexion recovered a little. He then let Rui Qianyu and Mu Shuiyin out of the 9 extremities. Nie Tian. Rui Qianyu saw Nie Tian, smiled faintly, and did not say much. Jun Jianqing. When Mu Shuiyin saw Jun Jianqing, she was a little excited. Seeing that the latter had not woken up yet, she became even more nervous. Don't worry, he is fine. When he wakes up, he should be fine. Nie Tian smiled faintly, telling Mu Shuiyin not to worry. Thank you, Mr. Nie. Mu Shuiyin sensed Jun Jianqing's aura and felt more at ease. She turned around and bowed slightly to Nie Tian to thank him. She was very surprised that Nie Tian could help Jun Jianqing recover from his near-death state in just half a day. At this moment, Nie Tian became even more mysterious and terrifying in her heart. Oh! At this moment, Jun Jianqing suddenly made a sound. Then his tightly closed eyes suddenly opened. Chapter 38-34. Nie Tian could feel the murderous intent rushing towards him. He couldn't help but stare in shock. Go to hell. In the next moment, Jun Jianqing's eyes were bloodshot, and he roared like a wild beast. His aura soared to the extreme in an instant, and he directly punched out. Immediately, a tremendous force surged out like a raging wave and crushed down on Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes trembled. He activated the astral soul shield and retreated at the same time. However, the distance between him and Jun Jianqing was too close. No matter how fast his reflexes were, he couldn't avoid the punch. Bang! Then a muffled sound came from the void. Nie Tian's silhouette was sent flying. Under the impact of the punch, he retreated for a few thousand meters and smashed into a huge rock behind him. The rock crumbled instantly. Nie Tian. Rui Qianyu couldn't react to the sudden scene. When she saw Nie Tian being sent flying, she screamed in fear. I'm fine. Nie Tian steadied himself and couldn't help but smile bitterly. He waved his hand to indicate that he was fine. However, there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The strength of Jun Jianqing's punch was not to be underestimated. Even with the toughness of Nie Tian's martial body, he was directly injured. If he didn't activate the astral soul shield, he would have been even more injured. Fortunately, Jun Jianqing had just woken up and his martial body had yet to fully recover. His strength was far from his peak. Otherwise, with such a close distance, even Nie Tian would have to shed a layer of skin. Bastard! At this moment, Jun Jianqing stood up. Like a wild beast, he growled, and the aura around his body was extremely violent. He was about to continue his attack. Jun Jianqing, stop! Before Nie Tian could speak, Mu Shuiyin stepped out and blocked Jun Jianqing's way. Shuiyin. Jun Jianqing saw the face of the person in front of him. His bloodshot eyes trembled slightly and instantly returned to normal. He said in shock, "Is it really you?" He couldn't believe his eyes. He could actually see Mu Shuiyin again. It was like a dream. It's me. Mu Shuiyin nodded slightly. She could no longer control the tears in her eyes. Jun Jianqing took a step forward and pulled the person in front of him into his arms. He said tightly, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault that you've been wronged." The two of them hugged each other for a long time, even forgetting that there was someone else beside them. Yet Tian smiled bitterly and gave the two of them enough time. Tian, are you really okay? Rui Qinyu stood beside Tian. She was still worried and asked softly. She could tell how terrifying Jun Jinxing's punch was. Even a powerhouse like Saint Tianyi might not be able to withstand it. I'm fine. Tian smiled faintly, his face indifferent. His martial body was far stronger than the average powerhouse like Saint Tianyi. Even if he took Jun Jinxing's punch head-on, it wouldn't be a big deal. Rui Qinyu sensed Tian's martial body and was relieved to make sure that his breathing was normal. At that moment, Jun Jinxing and Mu Shuiyan calmed down and exchanged a few words. Thank you, Mr. Nye, for saving my life. After a while, Jun Jinxing suddenly turned around to look at Tian. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, but he eventually walked forward and bowed to thank him. You're welcome. Tian smiled faintly and reached out to help Jun Jinxing up. Jun Jinxing straightened up and looked straight at Tian. He was obviously sizing up the ladder without any pretense. Although he had fought with Tian before, he hadn't really observed Tian in detail. Jun Jinxing. Mu Shuiyan tugged at Jun Jinxing secretly, obviously afraid that Tian would feel awkward. Tian, on the other hand, looked indifferent with a faint smile on his face. Why did you save me? Jun Jinxing looked at Tian for a long time and asked in a deep voice. He thanked Tian sincerely, but he also wanted to know why Tian saved him. Furthermore, Tian hadn't been friendly to him earlier and had even started a fight with him. Now that Tian had saved him and even given him the identity of a star venerate, he felt somewhat uneasy. Because you're worth saving, Tian responded faintly without any extra explanation. Is that all? Jun Jinxing was slightly stunned, obviously doubting Tian's answer. That's all. Tian was still calm and smiled faintly. Jun Jinxing frowned as if he was thinking about something and wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. Jinxing, if it weren't for Mr. Nye, you would have. Mu Shuiyan noticed that the conversation between the two men was a little hostile. She quickly stepped forward and said, and it was Mr. Nye who saved me from the hands of the Yi clan. I know. Jun Jinxing's expression was cold as he nodded. He looked at Tian for a long time without saying anything. Then, he turned to Mu Shuiyan and said, Let's go. This. Mu Shuiyan frowned and looked troubled. She didn't expect Jun Jinxing's reaction to be so cold. Is there a condition for you to save me? Jun Jinxing also frowned and asked Tian. No condition. Tian's lips twitched and he said, Although you are a Star Lord now, you don't have to listen to me. I only have one request for you. Don't kill the innocent. Thank you. Jun Jinxing nodded and pulled Mu Shuiyan away. He seemed to be in a hurry to leave, wanting to get rid of everything before him. Tian didn't stop him. He felt that maybe his existence made Jun Jinxing feel some kind of pressure. He didn't expect anything in return for saving Jun Jinxing. If a forbidden star soul could save someone who was worth saving, he didn't think it was a bad thing. Wait. However, Mu Shuiyan wasn't in a hurry to leave. She paused and turned to Tian. Mr. Nye, I'm really sorry. Jun Jinxing has just woken up. There are some things he isn't clear about. Tian smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Maybe Jun Jinxing felt that Tian was a threat to Mu Shuiyan and the child in her womb, which was why he was in a hurry to leave. At this moment, in Jun Jinxing's eyes, Mu Shuiyan and the child were the most important. Tian could understand his feelings. Let's go, Mu Shuiyan said helplessly. She knew that Jun Jinxing's coldness was because he wanted to protect her and the child. Jun Jinxing turned and looked at Tian. He didn't say anything and left with Mu Shuiyan. But at this moment, Mu Shuiyan's expression suddenly changed and she screamed. Shuiyan, what's wrong? The sudden situation made Jun Jinxing panic. My stomach hurts. Mu Shuiyan's face was full of pain. Her entire body was drenched in cold sweat, and her entire body was twitching. It was extremely strange. Chapter 38-35. What is this? Jun Jinxing stared at the thing on Mu Shiyan's abdomen and was stunned for a few seconds before he regained his senses. His eyes trembled uncontrollably. The fear in his heart was indescribable. Nie Tian couldn't help but exclaim in shock when he saw the black runes on Mu Shiyan's abdomen. This! Rui Qinyu exclaimed in shock as well, before she froze on the spot. There were black runes all over Mu Shiyan's lower abdomen. These runes seemed to be alive, wriggling like worms. They even emitted an extremely foul stench, as if they were rotting. What was even more frightening was that these black runes were slowly sinking into Mu Shiyan's lower abdomen, leaving behind ravine-like scars. It was as if her lower abdomen was going to be torn apart. Arg, it hurts, it's so painful. Mu Shiyan felt an intense pain in her abdomen, spreading throughout her entire body. Although she didn't want to show it, she couldn't control it all. Her exquisite facial features were contorted, making her look even more terrifying. How can this be? How can this be? How can this be? Jun Jinxing stared at Mu Shiyan, who was suffering unbearably, as his eyes trembled. Rage and violence were brewing in his heart, as though they would explode at any moment. He was like a ferocious beast, roaring in rage. And yet Tian frowned. His countenance was dark and gloomy. The current Jun Jinxing had already broken through to the Saint Monarch Tianyi realm under the effects of his bloodline mutation and the fusion of his astral souls. If he lost control, it would be extremely troublesome. Even yet Tian didn't have full confidence that he could completely control Jun Jinxing. Jun Jinxing had just completed his bloodline mutation, and the power of his bloodline was still unstable. The possibility of him losing control was extremely high. Jun Jinxing, calm down. Nie Tian roared in a low voice. His eyes were cold as he stared at Jun Jinxing. Calm down? Jun Jinxing was like a ferocious beast, roaring like thunder. How can I calm down? Shuyan is about to die. Our child is about to die. How can I calm down? Boom! As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian's body trembled as a surge of violent energy shot up into the sky. The power of his bloodline gushed forth, transforming into a hurricane in the air. It was violent to the extreme, as if it wanted to destroy everything. Damn it! Nie Tian's eyes suddenly darkened, and his expression suddenly changed. He had already sensed that Jun Jinxing's bloodline aura was becoming unstable. Calm down. Nie Tian frowned and growled. He threw out a punch, and the shadow of the punch was like a mountain pressing down on Jun Jinxing. Jun Jinxing retreated dozens of meters, his feet leaving a deep trench in the ground. However, he suddenly raised his head. His eyes turned red, and the power of his bloodline became even more violent. Oh no! Nie Tian frowned, and his expression changed. He knew something was wrong. If Jun Jinxing continued to release the power of his bloodline, he would definitely lose control. Even if Jun Jinxing had fused with the earthly destruction astral soul, losing control of his bloodline wouldn't cost him his life. It would still be troublesome. At least for now, Nie Tian had to know what happened to Mu Shiyan. He needed Jun Jinxing's help. Die! At that moment, Jun Jinxing suddenly roared, and the energy in his body surged like thunder. He then threw out a punch, pressuring Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, but he didn't retreat. He took a step forward, and the dragon chi in his body gushed out, meeting Jun Jinxing's attack head-on. Bang! In the next moment, the two fists collided, and a low rumble sounded in the air, as if two mountains had collided. Nie Tian and Jun Jinxing retreated at the same time, and then stabilized themselves. The difference was that after Nie Tian stabilized himself, a trace of blood could be seen at the corner of his mouth, while Jun Jinxing wasn't injured in the slightest. Instead, the power of his bloodline became even more violent. This guy's bloodline is so strong. Nie Tian couldn't help but frown. His heart was filled with shock. He had used the ancestral dragon chi, so one could only imagine how strong his martial body was. However, in a direct confrontation, he was actually at a disadvantage. One could see how strong Jun Jinxing's bloodline was. Nie Tian, this guy's bloodline is getting more and more violent. You have to wake him up. At that moment, the fat cat's voice sounded, reminding Nyetian. Khan nodded his head, his eyes narrowed, and his lips curled into a cold smile. Die. Immediately after, Jun Jianxing roared like a ferocious beast. His entire person was like a wild beast, rushing towards Nyetian. The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched again, and he took a step forward, charging straight at him. Nyetian. Upon seeing this scene, Raindrop Chinya's beautiful eyes couldn't help but tremble as she cried out in alarm. She had already seen that Nyetian was at a disadvantage in the confrontation with Jun Jianxing. It was too dangerous for Nyetian to fight against Jun Jianxing. Whoosh! However, at that moment, a majestic power surged out from the void and shrouded Jun Jianxing. Jun Jianxing instantly felt his spiritual soul tremble, and his eyes instantly became unfocused. At that moment, Nyetian's figure flashed like lightning, and he directly flew over. His hands were like a pair of iron pincers, tightly grasping Jun Jianxing's neck. You? Jun Jianxing immediately reacted and screamed. He wanted to resist, but found that he could not break free at all. Although his bloodline power was strong, in terms of martial body strength, he was no match for Nyetian. Since Nyetian had the upper hand, there was no way he would give Jun Jianxing a chance to fight back. You'd better wake up, Nyetian bellowed, his eyes filled with killing intent. Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled, and the redness in his eyes slowly dissipated. He slowly calmed down. Seeing that Jun Jianxing had calmed down, Nyetian let out a long sigh of relief and slowly let go. He used the power of the demonic destructive seal to forcefully attack Jun Jianxing, and finally managed to pull the latter back from his almost uncontrollable state. What happened to me? Jun Jianxing calmed down, and his eyes were filled with shock, as if he did not know what to do. You're fine now. Nyetian took a deep breath and said, Let's go check on Mu Xuan. Xuan. Hearing the name Mu Xuan, Jun Jianxing's eyes flickered, and he let out a scream. He then made his way to Mu Xuan's side. Yeah, you son of a B*TCH. At that moment, Mu Xuan had already fainted from the pain. Jun Jianxing stared at the black symbols on her lower abdomen and roared like a beast. However, this time, Jun Jianxing was much more restrained. Although he was angry, he did not go berserk.